This video will go through Season 1 of Netflix The Witcher and let you know what really happened in the two books it was based on, The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny, which are a collection of short stories detailing the adventures of Geralt as he comes into contact with Yennefer, Dandelion or Jaskia in the show, and Ciri. We'll try and use art when describing the books and vertical footage when detailing the show. And here we go. Andrzej Sapkowski's The Lesser Evil, Polish Mniejszość, is a brief narrative featured in The Last Wish, where it holds the position of the fourth story. Initially published in the now outdated book Wiedźmin, this short story delves into the origins of Geralt's infamous title, The Butcher of Blaviken. The first episode of Netflix's The Witcher series is titled The End's Beginning and is adapted from the short story The Lesser Evil. On the eve of Market Day, Geralt arrives in Blaviken with a Kikimor carcass in tow. Kikimora is a species of insectoid monsters that reside beneath the ground and in swamplands. Kikimor soldiers bear a striking resemblance to beetles, exhibiting a greater bulk and being safeguarded by a formidable, chitinous exoskeleton. Their horned visages and robust bodies, coupled with the menacing thorns adorning their legs, unequivocally establish them as formidable adversaries. Blaviken, situated on the coast of the Great Sea, is a rural town within Arxia. In the era known as the Butchering, it was under the jurisdiction of King Ordoin's domain and subsequently became a part of Redania. His intention is to seek out Caldamine, the town's alderman, in hopes of receiving a reward for the dead creature. Unfortunately, luck is not on his side as Caldamine dismisses the idea and suggests disposing of the carcass in the local cesspool. However, Caripebble, one of the town guards, proposes that Master Irian, the local wizard, might be interested in examining the creature. Everyone agrees that it is worth a shot, and they make their way to Irian's tower to find the mage. In the television adaptation, Geralt of Rivia emerges from a swamp, engaging in a fierce battle with a Kikimora. As the Kikimora tries to submerge its prey, Geralt struggles to retrieve his sword in order to resume the fight. Despite the Kikimora's initial advantage, Geralt ultimately impales her with his sword, ending her life. Prior to venturing into the town to claim his bounty, he stumbles upon a deer injured by the beast nearby and puts it out of its misery off-screen for food. He then transports the Kikimora to Blaviken with the intention of selling it, but faces distrust from the locals. Despite his attempt to order beer from the bartender, he is denied service and faced with hostility from the other patrons who prefer his demise over assisting him. Renfri intervenes, dismissing her guards and offering Geralt a drink, persuading the townspeople to leave him alone. Geralt is assured by a young woman named Marilka that the wizard Irian residing in the town will purchase the monster's corpse. Upon entering the mage's tower, Geralt discovers that the interior has been enchanted to appear as a beautiful garden maintained by young, unclothed women. Geralt realizes that Irian is actually Stregobor. Stregobor has assumed the name Irian from the deceased creator of the tower he inhabited. Geralt realizes that Stregobor had intended to hire him, leading Stregobor to disclose his desire for Geralt to assassinate Renfri. In the book, Master Irian seems to be more intrigued by Geralt himself rather than the Kikimor carcass. As Geralt enters the tower, he is immediately enveloped in an illusion. Inside, he discovers the wizard amidst a magnificent garden reminiscent of Eden, with a young woman casually plucking apples while in the nude. Geralt quickly realizes that this man is none other than Stregobor, a mage he had previously encountered at King Idi's court in Kovia, and not the real Master Irian. Stregobor explains that he adopted the name of Irian to maintain his anonymity while occupying the tower. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Stregobor finally gets straight to the point. He implores Geralt for his assistance, claiming that a monster is relentlessly pursuing him with the intention of ending his life. After some probing, the wizard confesses to Geralt that the so-called monster is actually a young woman who he believes was born under the curse of the Black Sun. Geralt dismisses this notion as absurd and scoffs at the idea. Stregobor further explains to Geralt that the curse of the Black Sun, a solar eclipse, caused internal mutations in numerous women born on or around that day. This was seen as a fulfillment of the mage prophet Eltebald's prediction that 60 women born during that time would bring about the return of Lilith and the destruction of humanity. In order to prevent this, Stregobor and other sorcerers hunted down and either killed or imprisoned these women. Despite their efforts to cure the imprisoned women, they all ultimately perished. Autopsies were conducted on the deceased to confirm their unnatural mutations, and the search for these women continued in hopes of averting the prophecy. Stregobor confesses that he had intended to eliminate Renfri, the final woman fitting the criteria, a princess born during the peak of the eclipse. However, she managed to evade his assassin and has been pursuing Stregobor ever since, immune to his magic due to her mutations. In an attempt to protect himself from her wrath and prevent the prophecy from coming to fruition, Stregobor pleads with the Witcher to aid him by killing the girl, asserting that she is a far greater monster than the Kikimor that Geralt recently vanquished. He argues that it would be the lesser evil to eliminate her. However, Geralt firmly declines the request and departs. In the episode, Geralt encounters his contact, Marilka, the alderman's daughter, whom he is attempting to sell the Kikimora to. She informs him that her father actually wanted a Gravet's corpse, as Kikimoras are useful for reducing the population. Meanwhile, Renfri and her group of troublemakers have arrived in Blaviken. Geralt encounters them all at the Golden Court Tavern and finds himself on the verge of a brawl. However, Renfri intervenes and requests that Geralt listen to her and in the process inform the alderman of her intentions. She explains that she possesses a letter from King Alduin, which grants her and her band immunity from harm. Caldamine verifies the authenticity of this letter. In the episode, Geralt is taking a break in the forest on the outskirts of town when Renfri approaches him. She confides in him that she was once a princess, until she was attacked by one of Stregobor's henchmen, who not only assaulted her but also stole from her, causing her to lose her royal status. She then demands to know the whereabouts of Stregobor, expressing her desire to kill him. However, Geralt remains unaffected by her threats. Being a fellow mutant, Renfri questions why Geralt refrains from killing those who try to harm him, just as people have attempted to kill her. In response, Geralt explains that resorting to such actions would only confirm the accusations made against him, labeling him as a monster. He advises Renfri to simply leave Blaviken and then departs. That evening, as Geralt retreats to his attic room in Caldamine's residence, he discovers that Renfri has already arrived. They engage in conversation during which the young woman proceeds to recount her life story to the Witcher. Additionally, she draws a comparison between Stregobor and the Kikimor that Geralt had brought into town. Asserting that Stregobor is a more monstrous figure, Renfri extends the same proposition to Geralt as Stregobor had previously offered: to choose the lesser evil, eliminate the other, and receive a reasonable reward in return. Once again, Geralt declines the offer. He implores Renfri to forgive Stregobor and to demonstrate that the wizard and the alleged curse were mistaken. However, she refuses. Before departing, Renfri hints that she and her group will peacefully leave the town, possibly to confront Stregobor elsewhere in a final confrontation. As she prepares to leave, she and Geralt share an intimate moment together. During breakfast with Caldamine and his family in the morning, the alderman casually mentions Tridam, which immediately captures the Witcher's attention. This is because Renfri had mentioned a specific Tridam ultimatum the previous night. As Caldamine narrates the full story, Geralt suddenly realizes Renfri's true plan. Contrary to preparing to leave town, she intends to exploit the duty of the local mage to protect the town. Her plan involves massacring the townsfolk in the marketplace to lure out the wizard. In the episode, Geralt's night with Renfri haunts his dreams as she foretells his future, warning him of being driven out of Blaviken with stones and that the girl in the woods is his inescapable destiny. Upon waking up alone, Geralt realizes Renfri's intentions to wreak havoc in Blaviken until she finds Stregobor. Determined to stop her, Geralt heads to Blaviken. Without hesitation, Geralt rushes to the marketplace and discovers Renfri's gang assessing the area. Instead of waiting for them to execute their plan and harm the townsfolk, he decides to confront them in battle. Renfri is absent as she attempts to entice Stregobor from his tower. However, she leaves a message for the Witcher, a final plea for him to join her cause. Sivril, one of Renfri's companions, tries to eliminate Geralt swiftly with a crossbow bolt. To his surprise, the Witcher skillfully deflects it with his blade. Sivril then commands the gang to charge Geralt as a united force. Geralt swiftly and decisively thwarts their plan, leaving Renfri to witness the defeat of her men upon her return. Renfri is aware that she will not be able to lure Stregobor out. Renfri comprehends the futility of her mission, understanding that she cannot attain her desired revenge. Engaging in an attack against Geralt would ultimately result in her own demise. She discloses that Stregobor disregarded her ultimatum, instructing her to do as she pleases with the townsfolk and neighboring towns. This revelation leads to a confrontation between Renfri and Geralt. In the episode, Renfri emerges from the shadows holding Marilka hostage with a blade to her throat. Geralt confronts Renfri and urges her to leave Blaviken using magic, but she claims that only silver affects her, like monsters. Renfri releases Marilka and attacks Geralt directly. Then, a fierce sword fight ensues between them. Inflicting several wounds on Geralt, she is eventually disarmed, left with only a dagger. Geralt tries to end the fight peacefully, but Renfri lunges at him with the dagger, leading him to redirect it towards her own throat. As Renfri breathes her last in Geralt's arms, she emphasizes that Ciri is his destiny, promising to be with him always before succumbing to her injuries. In the book, Stregobor approaches the Witcher with the intention of conducting an autopsy on the girl's body to validate his theory that the curse was the cause. To his surprise, Geralt firmly denies him access to the body. Stregobor departs, informing the Witcher that he is free to follow, while the townspeople start throwing rocks at Geralt. Using the Quen sign to shield himself, Geralt defends against the attacks until Caldamine intervenes and orders them to cease. Nevertheless, this marks the end of any goodwill from the alderman towards Geralt, as he instructs the Witcher to depart from Blaviken and never return. In the episode, Stregobor navigates the aftermath of Geralt's clash with Renfri's men. He eventually locates Renfri's lifeless body and expresses his intention to conduct an autopsy. Despite Geralt's strong opposition, Stregobor clarifies that Renfri's unique abilities allowed her to manipulate those around her, including her soldiers, and therefore necessitates further examination. When Geralt remains steadfast in his refusal, Stregobor comes to the realization that Geralt himself may have been under Renfri's influence. Consequently, instead of compensating Geralt for the assassination, Stregobor draws attention to the numerous bodies left in Geralt's wake. This action sparks outrage among the townspeople, including Marilka, who view Geralt as a dangerous witcher. Subsequently, they pelt him with stones until he departs, just as Renfri had foreseen. One of the major differences between the TV show and the book is that Episode 1 of The Witcher adds a storyline for Cirilla. This is based on Blood of Elves, a novel that follows the events of the short story compilations Sword of Destiny and The Last Wish, and is followed by Time of Contempt. In the book, the Kingdom of Cintra is invaded by the Empire of Nilfgaard. Queen Calanthe takes her own life, leaving her granddaughter, Cirilla, known as Ciri and dubbed the Lion Cub of Cintra, to escape the flames engulfing the capital city. Emir var Emreis, the Emperor of Nilfgaard, dispatches his agents to locate her. He is aware of the significant value this young girl holds, not just due to her royal lineage, but also because of her magical abilities and elven ancestry. However, a much shorter version is written in the book compared to the show. In the episode In the Streets of Cintra, Princess Ciri enjoys a game of knucklebones until Sir Laszlo arrives to escort her back to the Cintran citadel. Laszlo, a distinguished nobleman from Cintra, holds a prominent position as a knight and serves in the military. Mousak, also recognized as Ermion, is a proficient and astute druid. Moreover, he serves as a loyal companion and counselor to King Bran of Skellige and Queen Calanthe of Cintra. His physical attributes include a sturdy build and a well-grown, dense beard. Once there, she participates in a ceremony welcoming new knights before joining a celebratory feast. During the feast, Queen Calanthe and King Iced discuss the looming threat of Nilfgaard. The Nilfgaardian Empire, known as Caesarite in the Nilfgaardian language, stands as the most formidable empire to have ever existed in the annals of the known world. Situated in the southern region of the continent, it proudly showcases a flourishing economy and a formidable military force led by skilled commanders. Its dominion has primarily been established through the conquest of foreign lands, subsequently transforming them into integral provinces of the empire. Within the Empire, there exists a belief among its inhabitants that true Nilfgaardians are solely those fortunate enough to be born within the heart of the Empire, rather than those born in the conquered provinces. Ciri is then sent to dance until Sir Danik arrives with news of Nilfgaard's impending attack. Instead of relying on fortifications or waiting for naval support, Calanthe and Iced confront the Nilfgaardian invaders on the battlefield outside Sintra. In the midst of the Marnadal stairs, a passage nestled within the Amil Mountains that guides the way to Sintra, an intense clash ensues between the two nations. Queen Calanthe and King Iced valiantly join the front lines, fearlessly engaging in combat. This pivotal moment marks the first major battle in the series. Despite the lack of cavalry, the sheer numbers of the Nilfgaardians further hampers their defense. Tragically, King Iced falls to an arrow from Cahir, prompting Queen Calanthe to retreat in grief. The abruptness and lack of ceremony surrounding his demise leave a profound and chilling impact. In the Cintran capital, Ciri anxiously awaits Calanthe's return alongside her protector Sir Laszlo and the druid Mousesack. When Calanthe finally arrives after several days, she is gravely injured. She reassures Ciri of her future rule over Sintra, but their conversation is interrupted by Mousesack's report of the Nilfgaardians breaching the outer walls of the capital. With the walls left defenseless after the previous battle, the Nilfgaardians advance towards the citadel. Mousesack quickly casts a magical barrier around the gate to halt the invaders' progress. The Nilfgaardians continue to bombard the barrier with flaming arrows throughout the night, eventually breaking through Mousesack's defense and breaching the gate. Mousesack informs Calanthe of the breach, prompting her to order the entire castle to ingest poison as a means of avoiding capture by the Nilfgaardians. She then sends her granddaughter Ciri away with Laszlo and Mousesack for protection, instructing her to seek out Geralt of Rivia. As Ciri departs, she lets out a scream of denial, causing a magical ripple to fill the room. Following Ciri and Laszlo's departure, Calanthe reveals to Mousesack that Ciri is the target of the Nilfgaardian invasion. Mousesack, determined to safeguard Ciri, escorts her to the outskirts of the city. When they are spotted by enemy soldiers, Mousesack stays behind to delay them while Laszlo and Ciri flee. However, Cahir catches up to them and fatally wounds Laszlo with an arrow. Cahir then captures Ciri, while the Cintran nobility choose to drink poison and perish. In a final act, Calanthe jumps out of a window to her demise. Cahir proceeds on his path with Ciri in tow as they venture through the outskirts of Sintra. However, as she witnesses her beloved city engulfed in flames from a distance, a surge of anger consumes her, leading her to unleash an even more potent wave of magical energy into the surroundings. This startles Cahir's horse, causing it to stumble and throw them off. Despite Cahir's attempts to hold on to Ciri, she emits another piercing scream, causing him immense pain and compelling him to release his grip. Seizing the opportunity, she flees, emitting such a deafening scream that a colossal stone monolith crumbles and forms a chasm in the ground, effectively creating a barrier between them and enabling Ciri to escape without any pursuit. According to the book, Ciri's age during the slaughter of Sintra in 1263 would be around 10 to 11 years old. The second episode of the Witcher series on Netflix is named 4 Marks, and it is based on the short story The Edge of the World and partly on The Tower of the Swallow, the 4th novel in the Witcher saga. The episode begins in the city of Vengerberg with a young man offering a young lady a daisy. Although she would have preferred a rose, they proceed to share a kiss. However, the young lady soon realizes that the flower has vanished, and upon turning around, she spots a girl with a hunched back, dark hair, and captivating violet eyes clutching it. The girl tries to kindly return their flower. Outraged, the couple accuses her of spying on them. However, they cruelly attack the girl due to her appearance, grappling with her until she is brought down to the ground. Then, an inexplicable surge of energy, something mystical and beyond her command, engulfs the girl, and she abruptly finds herself standing on a solid stone surface, far removed from her previous location. This act of using magic leaves a mark on her. This serves as our initial encounter with Yennefer, who stands in stark contrast to the stunning and formidable woman we encountered in the Witcher games. Yennefer observes her unfamiliar surroundings, a chamber adorned with skulls. A man named Istrid, taken aback by her presence, remarks that it appears she teleported into this place. He warns her that she will soon pursue her, as opening this portal has made her a target. Suddenly, another portal materializes, allowing Yennefer to flee back to her village. Yennefer's backstory isn't explained in such detail in the book. It is mostly fabricated for the show. However, there are glimpses of her past in the novel, The Tower of the Swallow. Yennefer's upbringing was challenging due to her multiple physical deformities and lack of understanding from her family. Yennefer's father displayed cruelty not only towards her, but also towards her mother, until he eventually abandoned them for another woman. Her father harbored resentment towards her, blaming her mother for her condition and her part-elf heritage. Even after her father's departure, Yennefer's mother persisted in mistreating her. In the Netflix adaptation of The Witcher, Yennefer's biological father is revealed to be the source of her elven lineage, whereas in the original books, it is her mother. Despite this, her mother attempted to shield her from harm during her early years, while her father relegated her to menial tasks, stating that she was not his daughter in The Witcher Episode 2. Once back in Vengerberg, the arrival of a woman at Yennefer's home results in an offer to purchase her for 4 marks, hence the title of this episode. Despite the objections from her mother, her father agrees to the deal. Just moments before, he mentioned that a pig would cost 10 marks, indicating the low value he places on his disfigured daughter. The woman is a witch, the mother cautions. You know the consequences. However, her warning goes unheeded. The witch is called Tissaia. Despite Yennefer's own reluctance, she is unwillingly taken away from her home and confined to a room in Aretuza. Aretuza, established by Clara Larissa de Winter in 839, is a prestigious magical academy exclusively for young ladies. It is strategically located adjacent to Garstang Palace on Thanedd Island. The academy boasts an impressive structure with 5 floors and a total of 76 rooms, which include dedicated spaces for the students. Notably, the academy attracts girls from the 12 most esteemed families in Redania, further enhancing its reputation and exclusivity. In the sorceress's castle, we shift our focus to her, appearing as a captive. Yennefer experiences a breakdown, longing for her mother's presence. Gazing at her reflection in a grimy mirror, tears stream down her face as she vents her frustration by forcefully shattering it with her clenched fist. She then retrieves a fragment of the shattered glass and holds it against her wrist, contemplating putting an end to her anguish in her own way. In the books, Yennefer's education might have been acquired through a transaction, but there is an alternative option to enroll at Aretuza by paying tuition fees. If Yennefer had desired to attend the academy, her father's income would not have been sufficient to cover the expenses. Affluent women in the region can also opt to pay 1,200 crowns to receive an education at Aretuza. This choice is particularly favored by prosperous families across the continent. Upon enrollment at Aretuza, girls are restricted from leaving the premises. They are prohibited from exploring towns or visiting family members. There are no breaks for them to reunite with their loved ones. During their training, girls are required to dedicate themselves entirely to their studies. They must concentrate and learn for as long as necessary, resulting in their compulsory stay at Aretuza throughout their educational journey. The episode then moves to Ciri's point of view. She is on the run once again, darting through the dense forest. Echoing through the trees, she hears distant cries of her name, indicating the relentless pursuit of Nilfgaardian soldiers. In an effort to conceal her identity, she seeks refuge behind a tree and smears mud over her hair. As hunger gnaws at her, she plucks a berry from a nearby bush, but before she can consume it, an unseen force knocks it from her grasp. Suddenly, a young boy emerges from the shadows, silently cautioning her against eating the berries as they are evidently toxic. Dara, an elf, has made a fire, and they proceed to cook and consume a pair of rats. Ciri finds herself far removed from the extravagant banquets of the Cintran court. Ciri instructs Dara to extinguish their fire to avoid detection. She confides in the speechless boy, recounting her escape from a man adorned with a prominent avian ornament on his head, alluding to Kahir, her captor in the initial episode. Suddenly, she catches sight of Cintran flags in the distance, her own people, and experiences a surge of joy. However, the boy, whom she has affectionately named Rat Boy, disappears upon spotting them. Nilfgaard aims to broaden its territory and dominance over the surrounding lands, which encompasses Cintra. Cintra held significant value due to its status as a prosperous and influential kingdom, boasting access to crucial resources and trade routes. The episode then moves on to Geralt seeking solace in a tavern in Posada. He is drowning his sorrows while Jaskier, a subpar bard, is causing chaos. The customers are throwing food at him, but he simply collects it and puts it in his pocket. It's evident that this lifestyle is not bringing him much success. Suddenly, he spots Geralt of Rivia with his distinctive white hair sitting alone in a corner. Jaskier approaches him and requests a critique of his performance. Geralt simply points out that the creatures in Jaskier's song are not real, leading Jaskier to realize Geralt's true identity as a witcher, which he promptly announces. Upon hearing this, a farmer named Netley offers him 100 ducats in advance to eliminate a devil stealing his grain, with Jaskier joining the mission. The Edge of the World represents a brief narrative serving as the 6th story within the Last Wish anthology. This tale chronicles the initial escapade embarked upon by Dandelion and Geralt as they venture forth together. The character known as Dandelion in Andrzej Sapkowski's book series is named Jaskier in the Witcher Netflix series. This alteration in name is a result of the adaptation process and the choice to stick with the original Polish names from Sapkowski's novels. In the short story, The Edge of the World, Geralt and Dandelion stop in Upper Posada in search of employment opportunities. Despite their efforts to inquire about available jobs, the Witcher determines that the stories circulating among the locals are mere superstitions and do not offer any substantial work for him. Consequently, the duo opts to proceed towards the outskirts of the known world. In the short story, Dandelion observes a horse-drawn carriage attempting to pass them in Lower Posada. Then, a nearby farmer catches up with them and confirms the existence of work suitable for a witcher. He shares his skepticism towards the tales in Upper Posada and proposes that they continue their journey while discussing matters in a more comfortable setting. In the short story, upon arriving in the village, Dun, the respected elder, informs Geralt about a troublesome Deable causing mischief. Despite Dandelion's disbelief in the existence of devils, Geralt agrees to investigate the matter. Venturing into the fields filled with hemp and hops, Geralt and Dandelion stumble upon the Deable. Engaging in a brief conversation with the creature, Dandelion unintentionally aggravates it, resulting in the devil hurling iron balls at Geralt and his companion with remarkable precision. Fearing for their safety, they hastily retreat from the scene. Back in the village, Geralt faces Dun and Netley, encounters the community's elderly wise woman and Leal. Following a conversation, an ancient book is presented, and the elderly woman reads specific passages from it. Through this, the Witcher and the Bard discover that the devil is, indeed, a Sylvan. The villagers had attempted to follow the book's advice to drive out the creature, inadvertently arming it with iron balls. The elderly woman and Leal depart, taking the book with them. Geralt continues his discussion with the men. Yennefer's desperation leads her to contemplate, prompting Tissaia to intervene and save her. Yennefer finds herself in a greenhouse alongside other girls identified by Tissaia as having an aptitude for channeling chaos, a powerful magical force in the Witcher world. While the other girls successfully make a small rock levitate, Yennefer struggles to do the same. As the rocks float, nearby flowers wither and perish. Tissaia explains this phenomenon as the balance, defining magic as the act of organizing chaos. Despite her efforts, Yennefer fails to move the rock and leaves in frustration. She heads towards the tower only to realize it is the same stone chamber she had previously encountered. Later on, we discover that this tower is Tor Lara, known as the Tower of the Gull, a place Tissaia deems as the most potent place on the continent, restricted to the Brotherhood of Sorcerers. Yennefer's immense power can be attributed in part to her elven heritage. In the world of the Witcher, elves are credited with the creation of magic as it is known, and they later shared this knowledge with humanity after the conjunction of the spheres. Despite magic becoming more associated with humans as the story progresses, elves continue to be formidable practitioners of this mystical art. In Time of Contempt, Dandelion describes Yennefer's abilities to that of a deity embodying vengeance, destruction, and death. It goes without saying that Yennefer is an exceptionally powerful sorceress, and the Netflix adaptation of The Witcher only scratches the surface of her unimaginable strength. Within the camp, Ciri is taken aback by the resentment towards their deceased queen, her grandmother, for the downfall of Cintra. A young boy named Adon approaches her, extending an invitation to temporarily join his family. They provide her with new shoes and a place to rest in their tent. The villagers have more than enough reason to hate Calanthe for what happened to Sintra. Instead of quickly acting, she hosted a party, remained seated, and carried on with the festivities. She argued that it was in Ciri's best interest to enjoy the evening and for everyone to feign normalcy. While it was evident that she was striving to prioritize her family's well-being, it may not have been the most suitable course of action for a queen, and her responsibilities as such should have taken precedence at that moment. Back to Geralt and Jaskier. They journey further into Dol Blathana, a territory once under elven rule, until the Witcher finally locates the devil, who turns out to be a Sylvan, a rare satyr-like being. Sylvans typically present minimal threat, as they restrict their interactions with humans to engaging in playful pranks and consuming crops from their lands. Geralt and the Sylvan, named Torque, have a brief scuffle before the Witcher subdues him, pressing a sword against his neck. Recognizing Torque's intelligence, Geralt decides not to end his life. But you must leave this place. Torque responds, and so must you. An elf strikes him from behind, rendering him unconscious. Sylvans and Yakshas, both belonging to a similar species, are uncommon woodland creatures that exhibit a blend of goat-like features with those of stout men. After spending several weeks in Aretuza, Yennefer falls significantly behind her peers. She struggles to complete even simple tasks and resorts to lying in an attempt to hide her shortcomings. However, Tissaia quickly detects her deceit and reprimands her. With Istred's assistance, Yennefer learns to delve into his mind and discovers pleasant memories, such as the sound of cicadas. Later, Yennefer is awakened and taken to Tor Lara to capture lightning in a bottle. Unfortunately, she fails in her attempt and is struck by the lightning. Filled with anger, Yennefer unleashes the lightning, forcing Tissaia to redirect it back into the sky. Following this incident, Tissaia scolds Yennefer for allowing chaos to control her, instead of mastering it herself. Yennefer in the Witcher TV series is depicted as a young woman when she graduates as a sorceress, having already outgrown her teenage years when she arrived at Aretuza. However, in the books, Yennefer is portrayed as significantly younger. Born in 1173, she successfully completed her magical training and became a sorceress at the age of 13 in 1186. Yennefer's concern about being sent home due to her incompetence and being separated from Istred grows. In an attempt to reassure her, Istred reveals a shocking truth to her. He shows her the skulls of the elves who originally constructed Aretuza and taught humans the art of harnessing chaos into magic. However, humans betrayed the elves and massacred them in return. Istred presents Feon Nued, a plant that only grows where elder blood has been spilled, to Yennefer. With this herb, Yennefer effortlessly creates a portal on her first try. She discloses that her true father was half-elven, which explains her deformed spine resulting from the blending of the two races. Unexpectedly, Istred kisses Yennefer, but later it is revealed that he was actually working for Stregobor. Istred exposes Yennefer's elven lineage to Stregobor. Only a select few individuals possess the inherent ability to become mages, and unfortunately, many of those gifted with this potential are destined to succumb to madness. Unless these individuals swiftly learn to harness and control their powers, they may find themselves transformed into a half-crazed, babbling oracle. This is precisely why schools of sorcery were established, providing a haven for talented children to dedicate years of study towards acquiring knowledge and mastering the intricacies of magical skills. Due to their extraordinary abilities, mages age at a significantly slower pace than ordinary individuals. They possess the remarkable capability to draw upon the magical energy present in the four elements, enabling them to traverse great distances in an instant and wield the power to both heal and extinguish life with a mere blink of an eye. Furthermore, mages possess extensive understanding in scientific and political matters, often rivaling the knowledge and expertise of rulers in the realm of politics. As Ciri rests in the refugee camp, the Nilfgaardians gather around, causing the family she had been staying with to panic. The woman who had provided comfort to Ciri the previous night becomes furious and commands her slave, Abbot, to gather her belongings as they flee. However, Abbot reaches his breaking point and violently stabs her to death. Ciri witnesses this horrifying act while Dara swiftly cuts through the tent and rescues her, all the while noticing the lifeless body of Adon. As they escape into the woods outside the camp, Ciri also makes the startling discovery that Dara is an elf. While Yennefer anxiously awaits Tisaea's decision on her ascension, she becomes restless and decides to secretly observe Tisaea. To her astonishment, she discovers Tisaea transforming her companions into eels. Tisaea encourages Yennefer to release them into the water, claiming that sometimes the best thing a flower can do for us is to perish. When Yennefer follows her instructions, Aretuza becomes illuminated with magic. The Aretuza apprentices are utilized as eels despite the harshness of this transformation and the ascend process. By transforming them into eels, Tisaea removes their autonomy while retaining their abilities, thereby acting as a link for Aretuza. Yennefer was not subjected to this fate because Tisaea recognized her potential, and turning her into an eel would have been a squandered opportunity. As per the official Netflix's The Witcher website, the pool containing white water at the tower's base serves as Aretuza's energy source, and those mages incapable of controlling chaos are changed into eels, condemned to spend their lives in this pool and supply power to the Academy. In the show, Jaskier and Geralt awaken to discover themselves restrained and tormented by Toraviel, an ailing elf. Filavandrel, the Elven king, discloses that he had the Sylvans pilfer provisions and medicine to aid their sick and famished people, who were forcefully driven out of their homes. This revelation bewilders Jaskier that the elves graciously departed the land to reside in opulent, golden palaces, when, in reality, they sought refuge in humble caves. Geralt advises Filavandrel to relocate and rebuild if he refuses to assimilate with humans, emphasizing that he himself is not human. Consequently, Filavandrel releases him. As a gesture of gratitude, Geralt leaves his reward with the elves, while Jaskier composes a new song inspired by their shared experience. Geralt trails behind him as Jaskier sings his creation. In the world of The Witcher, elves are often despised and marginalized, which can be attributed to their own history of prejudice. Elves view themselves as superior beings, created rather than evolved like humans, and this belief leads them to look down on other races. When elves first arrived on the continent through a portal, they peacefully colonized much of the land, but also faced conflicts with other races. The arrival of humans following the conjunction of the spheres led to further tensions, with humans gradually displacing elves from their territories. Despite attempts at peace through treaties, violent clashes between humans and elves persisted, fueling an ongoing rivalry between the two races. In the short story, Geralt tries to engage the Sylvan in conversation in the fields. The devil declines but proposes a challenge, indicating willingness to play games. Geralt, uninterested in games, suggests a different approach. This leads to a scuffle in the hemp, during which the Sylvan narrowly escapes. Geralt hears a horse approaching and assumes Dandelion has arrived to help on horseback. However, there is a surprising turn of events as the Witcher is actually knocked down by the unidentified rider. As he regains consciousness, he realizes he is lying face down on the ground, tightly bound. The distant chatter in the old language catches his attention, and he immediately recognizes one of the voices as belonging to the infamous devil known as Torque. The other speaker is an elf named Galar. To his dismay, he notices that Dandelion is also bound nearby. Their elven captors become aware of their awakening, and Toraviel approaches them with hostility. She proceeds to mock human musical abilities and cruelly smashes Dandelion's lute. Geralt, despite being restrained, manages to overpower her and forcefully pins her down. In a swift motion, he headbutts her, breaking her nose, causing the other elves to draw their blades. Their confrontation is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of Filavandrel on horseback, as both Geralt and Dandelion are firmly tied to a pine tree using belts. Despite their efforts to reason with the elves, their pleas fall on deaf ears. The elves order Torque to step aside and prepare their bows, ready to attack. Fortunately, at this juncture, the Queen of the Fields makes a grand entrance. The elves stop, sheathing their weapons, and bow before her. Filavandrel pleads with her, although she remains silent, seemingly communicating with him telepathically. After a brief pause, the elves rise, quiet, mount their horses, and begin to depart. Filavandrel bids Geralt farewell. Toraviel presents Dandelion with a new lute, and they go their separate ways. Filavandrel informs Geralt that he has had a change of heart and hopes that the Witcher will not disappoint him when they inevitably cross paths on the battlefield. Geralt assures him that he will give his best effort. Meanwhile, Torque releases Geralt and Dandelion, the latter having fainted. When Torque inquires about what to do with the poet, Geralt suggests a few slaps to the face, which Torque eagerly carries out. The tale concludes with the Witcher, the Bard, and the Sylvan gathered around a campfire, contemplating their next move, perusing the villager's book. Betrayer Moon is the third installment of the Witcher series on Netflix, which will be adapted from the short story The Witcher. The Witcher is a brief narrative that initially appeared in the Fantastica magazine and was subsequently included in the now-defunct book Vjuzhanina before being reissued in The Last Wish. This tale serves as an introduction to the renowned Witcher Geralt and his legendary encounter with a fearsome Striga. In the episode, Geralt awakens in a tavern, finding himself accompanied by a courtesan. As she observes the numerous scars adorning his body, she proceeds to inform him about a creature that has been instilling fear in the people of Temeria. Prostitution thrives within the realm of The Witcher, with numerous brothels featured across all 3 Witcher video games. Whenever Geralt finds himself in close proximity, he readily avails himself of their services. Geralt's arrival in Vizima marked the start of the short story. Following a violent altercation in a bar where he took down 3 racist individuals, he was apprehended by the city guard and brought before Velerad, the aged Castellan of Vizima. In the episode, the miners in the area are willing to pay a generous sum of 3,000 Oren for the creature's demise. She also mentions that the previous Witcher who was hired for the task allegedly absconded with the payment, although we are aware that this claim is false, having just witnessed his demise. The landlord knocks on the door, requesting payment for the room. Geralt assures the man that he will return promptly with the money, and cautions him against touching his horse. The Witcher journeys to Temeria, where winter holds the land in its icy grip, and finds the miners. Initially cautious of the Witcher, they gradually warm up to him as Geralt proposes to take a third of the reward only after the monster is defeated. It is an irresistible offer for them. The miners are organizing a rebellion. They believe their ruler, Foltest, is holed up in his fortress, avoiding the issue of the creature they are certain is a Vukadlak, a type of werewolf. However, before the insurrection gains momentum, soldiers from Temeria appear. They command the miners to cease their actions and lead Geralt to the border. However, before this can happen, Geralt is being escorted in the snow when an individual known as Triss Merigold arrives, causing the soldiers to fall into a slumber and releasing him. Triss, a character well known to fans of the Witcher games, enlists Geralt's help in dealing with a beast. However, instead of wanting to kill it, the determined sorceress aims to save it. In the short story, Geralt points to the bounty notices he has seen near the crossroads, seeking a skilled monster hunter. In the episode, Triss reveals that the creature emerges from the crypt of Foltest's sister, Ada. After examining the victims, whose bodies are preserved in salt, Geralt concludes that the beast is not a Vukadlak, but a Striga, a woman cursed to become a monster. To his surprise, he discovers that the Striga is none other than Ada's daughter, a princess. A Striga, known as Strudziga in Polish, is a cursed human woman turned into a monster. Filled with animosity towards all living creatures, she consumes them without hesitation. Her hunting occurs exclusively during a full moon, showcasing remarkable agility and power in combat. King Foltest occasionally uses criminals as bait for the creature by tethering them to stakes in the ground. In the short story, Velerad, a nobleman, and the Burgermeister, Mayor, and Castellan of Vizima, the capital of Temeria, discloses the tale of the Striga and its origins. With King Foltest away, Velerad is the one with the most power in the city. Geralt encounters Foltest, who cautions him against harming the Striga. According to a wizard's prophecy, if the Striga is prevented from returning to her coffin by the third crow of the rooster, she will be cured and transform into a normal little girl. Geralt requests to speak with a miller who survived one of the Striga's previous attacks. The soldier escorting him is actually Foltest in disguise. Foltest grants Geralt permission to end his daughter's life if she is beyond saving. Geralt spends the night at the former palace as Foltest has relocated to a new Striga-free residence. In the episode, Geralt stumbles upon the body of another Witcher, realizing that Foltest concealed the truth about his death to hide the creature's strength. Outraged, Geralt confronts the king, who is found indulging in a chicken leg in the castle. Despite Foltest's displeasure at Triss seeking help from a mutant mercenary, she stands by her decision, insisting that Geralt is the most suitable candidate for the task, especially with a full moon approaching tonight. The Striga has undoubtedly proven to be a formidable adversary, even for a skilled Witcher like Geralt. Velerad reveals that several Witchers had come before Geralt, but they were reluctant to take on the contract once they learned that Foltest desired to lift the curse rather than kill the Striga. One Witcher attempted to fulfill the task but met his demise. Another Witcher, who was bribed by Velerad to simply eliminate her, ventured into the old palace but hastily retreated in fear upon catching a glimpse of the terrifying creature. Yennefer finds herself surrounded by flames on graduation day at Aretuza. She gazes at her reflection in the mirror, observing her transformed figure. A sorcerer remarks, "Every young woman I enchant emerges from Aretuza as a masterpiece, regardless of the obstacles faced." Tissaia instructs Yennefer to envision the most formidable woman in existence with her eyes closed. Yennefer's primary downfall lies in her relentless pursuit of greater power. On numerous occasions, she has been heard uttering the word everything when questioned about her deepest desires. In the earlier tales, Yennefer is depicted as someone who manipulates those in her vicinity, often jeopardizing their well-being. She exhibits a complete disregard for the consequences of her actions, willing to betray anyone or engage in any necessary means to achieve her objectives and enhance her own strength. The Brotherhood of Sorcerers convenes at a later time to discuss the allocation of new recruits to various kingdoms. In the world of The Witcher, mages assume the role of royal advisors. Tissaia expresses her desire to send Yennefer back to Aedirn, her birthplace. However, Stregobor discloses Yennefer's elven ancestry, a piece of information that Istred had shared with him in the previous episode. This revelation disqualifies Yennefer from being placed in Aedirn's court, as the Brotherhood is actively working to prevent the appointment of a mage with elven blood in Cintra. Tissaia later explains to a wounded Yennefer the reasons behind this decision, highlighting the fact that she cannot serve in her homeland, and also expressing her disappointment in Istred for betraying her trust. According to the book, the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, the most ancient association of sorcerers in the Northern Kingdoms, was founded following the non-aggression pact initiated by the Novigradian Union in the 8th century. This organization brought together and oversaw the majority of magic wielders, magical schools like Aretuza or Banard, and establishments such as Risberg, governed by the Chapter of the Gift and the Art, comprising two primary ruling entities that directed magical studies for generations. Geralt's suspicions about Foltest's involvement in Ada's pregnancy, resulting in the birth of the Striga, were met with resistance from the king. The Witcher's attempt to provoke a reaction from Foltest by describing the monstrous transformation of the creature only leads to anger and a command to leave the kingdom. Despite the tension, Geralt remains undeterred. Triss discovers Geralt near Ada's crypt in Temeria, where he uncovers letters revealing a scandalous affair between the siblings and their mother's knowledge of it. This new information hints at a possible motive for the curse that transformed the child into a Striga. Geralt, however, has his own theories about the situation. In the short story, Velerad reveals that during the early days of King Foltest's rule, he impregnated his own sister, Ada, who tragically perished along with the child during childbirth. Both were interred in a shared coffin. 7 years later, the daughter rose from the dead as a Striga, wreaking havoc within the palace walls. Ostrid, a loyal courtier to Foltest, expresses concern that the throne could be in jeopardy when Triss and Geralt present him with the letters. Geralt then reveals evidence of Ostrid's involvement by recognizing his scent on Ada's bed in the abandoned castle. Ostrid breaks down, confessing his love for Ada and his curse on Foltest out of jealousy, which ultimately led to the birth of the Striga. Geralt condemns Ostrid for the deaths caused by his jealousy, but Ostrid refuses to disclose how to lift the curse, desiring Foltest's suffering. Geralt, unamused, resorts to physical force by punching Ostrid. In the short story, Lord Ostrid, a nobleman, attempts to bribe Geralt into leaving, hoping to ensure the Striga's survival. This plan is aimed at causing unrest among the people of Vizima, making them more inclined to support Vizimir of Novigrad's reign. Geralt declines the offer, subdues Lord Ostrid, and uses him as bait for the Striga. Ostrid is soon discovered and met his demise at the hands of the Striga. In the Tower of Gulls at Aretuza, Yennefer confronts Istrid about his betrayal in sharing information about her with Stregobor. Istrid retaliates by revealing his knowledge of Yennefer giving the Fëanor flower to Tissaia. He informs her that she missed the initiation and the enchantments are already in place, suggesting they can travel the continent together. Yennefer firmly states that such a path is not her destiny, dismissing it as a slow suicide. Angered, she departs from Istred. While the other novices engage in revelry and merriment, Yennefer confronts the sorcerer she encountered earlier, challenging him to enhance her beauty. Despite his warning that the procedure would be excruciating and require her to be unconscious, she insists that he proceed. The sorcerer reminds her that every creation comes with a price, a sacrifice that is inevitable. Yennefer, fully aware of the consequences, agrees to undergo the procedure, closing her eyes and preparing herself for the impending ordeal. Yennefer, in the Netflix series, deliberately chooses to sacrifice her ability to bear children in exchange for physical beauty as a means to escape her painful past. However, in the Witcher books, not all sorceresses are required to be infertile. In the original material, infertility is a potential outcome of practicing magic, and therefore not every sorceress experiences it. In the TV series, Yennefer's decision haunts her for an extended period, driving her to take dangerous risks in order to restore her chance of motherhood. During the full moon, Geralt brings Lord Ostrid to the castle as he tries to extract information about the curse. Ostrid claims that the Queen Mother was behind his actions. Although he would have a better chance if his intention was to kill the creature, he must remember that Triss desires him to lift the curse. The Striga is a truly horrifying creature, with its slimy, black, and twisted appearance, and a tentacle-like umbilical cord trailing behind it. Geralt attempts to capture the Striga using chains by collapsing the floor with his Ard sign. In the short story, Geralt engages in a fierce battle with the Striga, showing reluctance to employ his silver sword. In an attempt to restrain the Striga, he employs a silver chain, which unfortunately proves ineffective as the Striga manages to break free. Despite the fact that silver is known to be the bane of magical creatures, it fails to subdue the Striga. However, Geralt eventually manages to frighten her away by utilizing his sorcery to reflect her own inner hatred and malice back at her. In the episode, as the sun begins to rise, the Striga desperately tries to climb back into Adda's tomb. Geralt, however, proves to be stronger and manages to enter the tomb himself, pulling the lid shut and sealing it with a powerful magical sign. The following morning, he emerges to find Adda and Foltest's child lying in the crypt, covered in blood and filth. In a feral and animalistic state, she lunges at Geralt, causing severe injuries to the Witcher. In self-defense, he bites her, his mouth stained with blood. This is the first time we witness Geralt in such a vulnerable state, reminding us that he is, indeed, human. In the short story, Geralt discovers a seemingly ordinary young girl lying on the floor. As he leans closer, he realizes too late that her eyes are open. With the last remnants of her talons, the Striga slashes Geralt's throat. Despite the attack, Geralt manages to subdue the girl, Striga, just as he hears the third crow of the rooster. Aware that he is about to lose consciousness, Geralt hastily binds his wounded neck. When he regains consciousness, he finds his neck bandaged, and Velerad, who had initially been part of the group planning to kill the Striga, admitting his mistake. Velerad assures Geralt that his silver sword, the promised reward of 3,000 orens, and his belongings are all safe. Comforted by this, Geralt finally succumbs to sleep. After being cured of the Striga curse, it is possible that the individual may not fully recover mentally, retaining some of the aggressive and somewhat slow-witted characteristics of their former Striga self. This seems to be a unique situation in Adda's case. As she was cursed before birth, she lacked exposure to human interaction and had to acquire language, social norms, at a much later stage than usual. Additionally, there is a risk of relapse, reverting back to a Striga. To prevent this, cured Strigas are advised to wear sapphire amulets, preferably with an inclusion, and periodically burn juniper, broom, and aspen in the fireplace of their living quarters to ward off the curse. In Aretusa, the mage performs a procedure on Yennefer, extracting something from her abdomen, possibly her uterus, although the specifics remain unclear, and utilizes it to create a peculiar substance. He then proceeds to paint dark lines across her exposed form, causing her to cry out in pain. Subsequently, the transformation becomes evident. Yennefer, now free of her hunched back, confidently enters the graduation celebration, exuding beauty and poise, resembling the Yennefer familiar to fans of the Witcher games. The onlookers, including her fellow students, are left in awe. In the book, Tissaia believed that sorceresses needed to be in optimal physical condition, so she mandated that any minor deformities be corrected. Yennefer's situation was unique, as her hunchback and other deformities had to be addressed before she could graduate as a sorceress. In the Netflix series, sorceresses also experienced a physical transformation, but Tissaia explained to Yennefer that each sorceress had the autonomy to decide how they wanted to remake themselves, giving Yennefer the freedom to choose what changes to make and what to retain. Approaching King Verfuril of Aedirn, Yennefer assertively displaces another student, introducing herself as Yennefer of Vengerberg. Despite Tissaia's attempts to mediate and apologize, the king remains unmoved. He takes Yennefer's hand and leads her onto the dance floor. The Yennefer in the books exudes a much stronger sense of self-assurance and mastery over magic, ultimately enhancing her power. Meanwhile, in Temeria, Triss tends to Geralt's injuries. It is revealed that he has been murmuring Renfri's name repeatedly in his slumber. Faint echoes of her voice emphasize the importance of the girl in the woods, Ciri, as his fate. Geralt collects his payment and departs Temeria. Right before the episode concludes, we are reintroduced to Ciri. She becomes aware of faint voices calling out her name, emanating from a dense forest. There is an inexplicable force that urges her to pursue them. Dara desperately chases after her, attempting to halt her progress, but is unexpectedly struck by an arrow in the shoulder, shot by an unseen archer. The hushed voices persistently chant Ciri's name as she cautiously ventures deeper into the obscurity of the forest. If Ciri truly represents Geralt's fate, he must locate her without delay. Witcher, Blood Origin reveals that Ciri's immense power comes from the Elder Blood passed down by her ancestors, a Witcher transformation, which is believed to have contributed to the creation of the Elder Blood lineage. Unlike modern witches who become sterile after the trial of the grasses, the Witcher transformation process has evolved over time, but it still involves infusing the subject with monster genes to improve their combat abilities. As a result, Geralt and Ciri may be considered distant relatives due to sharing these genes. It is quite peculiar that they are related through the same monster DNA, highlighting the unique connections that exist in the Witcher universe. The fourth episode of The Witcher is titled Of Banquets, Bastards, and Burials, and is an adaptation of the short story A Question of Price. We find Ciri once again in the forest, following the mysterious, whispering voices. As she ventures further into the woods, the voices grow louder and more intertwined, calling out her name in unison. Suddenly, the snowy landscape and barren trees give way to a vibrant greenery, and Ciri spots a radiant light ahead. However, before she can approach it, she is surrounded by a group of tribal-looking individuals. The leader, a woman, commands her group in an ancient language, instructing them to kill Ciri if she tries to escape. Ciri introduces herself as Fiona, claiming to be lost. The woman informs her that she is in Brokilon Forest. Brokilon, also referred to as the Forest of Death among humans, is an ancient forest queendom located on the continent. It stands as the only non-human state in the Northern Kingdoms that has never been conquered or subjugated by Nordlings. Governed by dryads and hamadryads, Brokilon provides refuge for numerous races and species that face persecution in the outside world. Dryads, as forest nymphs, possess a profound spiritual bond with nature. While they do not appear to oppose hunting, they hold a deep reverence for trees and other plants. It is strictly prohibited to introduce fire into the forest or wield an axe to fell a tree. Instead of harvesting wood for construction purposes, the enchanting abilities of hamadryads enable dryads to mold the living trees and shrubs according to their desires. This grants them the ability to create huts or even spacious dwellings, whether nestled on the forest floor or perched high in the treetops. In a tavern, a patron captivates the audience with a tale of a man known as the White Wolf, engaged in a fierce battle against a creature on a frozen lake. The story concludes with the Witcher being devoured by the beast. However, just as the tale reaches its climax, Geralt bursts into the tavern, drenched in blood and entrails. Jaskier, seizing the moment, begins to sing Geralt's renowned theme song, "Toss a coin to your Witcher, a friend to humanity." The entire tavern joins in the chorus, demonstrating that Jaskier's efforts to enhance Geralt's reputation are indeed bearing fruit. As Geralt cleanses himself of the monster's remains, Jaskier invites him to accompany him to a grand feast where he has been hired to entertain. It appears that Jaskier's romantic escapades with several Cintran ladies have caused discontent among certain lords, and he requires Geralt's protection. The Witcher, initially reluctant to involve himself in the trivial disputes of men, is reminded by Jaskier that he frequently does so anyway. Defeated by this astute observation, Geralt reluctantly agrees to accompany his bard companion. We witness Geralt, already acquainted with Jaskier from episode 2, attending a banquet hosted by Calanthe, who met her demise in the first episode. Geralt, dressed in a refined velvet attire, makes his entrance at the grand banquet celebrating the marriage of Calanthe's daughter, Pavetta. Various suitors hailing from different kingdoms are present, all eager to win Pavetta's hand in marriage. Mousak, whom we were introduced to in the first episode, places his bets on Kraken Crate, a boisterous, ale-drinking young man who fans recognize as an older character from Skellige. Amidst occasional disputes and scuffles among the nobles, Pavetta remains unimpressed by their uncouth behavior and shows no interest in any of them. In the short story, Geralt is found freshly shaven, bathed and dressed in fine attire by the servants and castellan Haxo of the royal family's castle in Cintra. The crown princess of Cintra, Pavetta, has recently celebrated her 15th birthday, attracting numerous suitors as tradition dictates. Inquiring about his presence, Geralt learns from Haxo that the queen is keen on forming an alliance between Cintra and Skellige, hence the need for a witch's expertise to secure this union. Calanthe makes a grand entrance, her armor stained with blood. A few rebellious townships in the south needed a reminder of who reigns, she says with delight. Her subjects erupt in cheers. Later, Geralt questions her motives for fighting when she could simply enjoy the comforts of her throne. "There is a certain simplicity in slaying monsters," she replies. Geralt, as usual, responds with a grunt. In the short story, Geralt, who has been formally invited to the party as the esteemed Lord Ravix of Forhorn, finds himself seated beside Queen Calanthe, yet remains unaware of the true purpose behind his invitation. As they partake in the evening meal, he engages in a lengthy discussion with the Queen regarding her perception of witches and how she, along with other rulers, views their profession. Geralt also questions whether the Queen's motives for inviting him are genuine. Interestingly, the Queen's prolonged conversation with the Witcher begins to irritate one of her guests. Notably, Geralt observes Mousak's keen interest in their exchange. Upon returning to Brokilon Forest, the leader of the group, whose name remains unknown, discloses to Ciri that they are not elves but rather dryads, a race of female wood nymphs who have inhabited the forest for countless ages. Ciri feels relieved to be reunited with Dara and observes as one of the dryads magically heals his shoulder wound by removing the arrow. Later, Ciri reveals her true identity as Princess Cirilla of Cintra, shocking Dara. "Your grandmother massacred my family," he confesses. He managed to escape as the sole survivor. Ciri refuses to believe that her grandmother, Calanthe, could commit such an act. According to the accounts of the dwarves, the dryads have existed in the world since always, with some speculating that they were present as early as the first tree. This suggests that Brokilon itself is of equal age. Upon the arrival on the continent, the dryads adopted certain elven customs, including language, and even interbred with them. One elven town, Crag Ann, was constructed within the forest boundaries, but it was eventually abandoned and fell into ruin at some point, as the forest inhabitants were not open to altering the natural environment to suit one's desires. In Cintra, a Lord Peregrine from Nilfgaard presents his argument for marrying Pavetta. However, his proposal is met with ridicule, as Calanthe dismissively refers to Nilfgaard as the inferior region of the south. This situation can be contrasted with the events in the first episode, where the Nilfgaardian army successfully conquers Sintra, leading to the demise of Calanthe and the downfall of her kingdom. Perhaps if Calanthe had treated Lord Peregrine with more kindness, the outcome would have been different. Suddenly, amidst the chaos, a disturbance arises. A man donning a protective helmet fights his way into the banquet hall, kneels before the queen, and declares his intention to claim Pavetta's hand in marriage. In the short story, the banquet progresses as anticipated, filled with joy and laughter. Kud Kudak entertains the guests with his impressive range of animal impressions. The younger Skelligers engage in discussions about military tactics, while Drogadar and Drag Bondot provide the music. Pavetta finally makes her entrance, though she appears unusually quiet and reserved, captivating the potential suitors present. Suddenly, a disturbance outside the throne room catches everyone's attention as an uninvited guest is announced. The sound of armored footsteps draws closer, and a knight in a spiked helmet introduces himself as Urchin of Erlenwald. Despite the queen's insistence, Urchin refuses to remove his helmet before midnight, citing a knight's vow. Reluctantly, Calanthe allows him to keep his helmet on and gives him permission to speak. Urchin reveals that he has come to claim the reward promised for saving King Regnar's life. By the law of surprise, Princess Pavetta is destined to be his from the day of her birth. On the journey to an unknown destination, Yennefer finds herself consumed by boredom. Accompanied by Queen Callis of Lyria in a carriage, the queen expresses her dissatisfaction with life, referring to herself as a mere vessel for producing heirs. Holding a baby girl in her arms, the queen shares her discontent. Yennefer, in response, reveals that her own life is not much different. Initially believing that becoming a mage to a king would fulfill her destiny, she now feels like nothing more than a glorified servant. Spending the past 30 years resolving foolish political predicaments. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a sword tears through the fabric above her, its blade stained with crimson. Yennefer swiftly opens a window in the carriage, revealing a chaotic battle unfolding outside, with her own face now adorned with splatters of the scarlet liquid. Stepping out, she discovers that the soldiers who are guarding the queen have been mercilessly slain, and then the attacker emerges, a mysterious mage cloaked in darkness accompanied by a menacing creature resembling a crab, armed with razor-sharp claws. Yennefer wastes no time, springing into action by conjuring a portal and whisking away the terrified queen and her child to safety. The king's frustration with his wife's inability to produce a male heir has led him to hire an assassin to eliminate her. The ensuing chase takes place across various landscapes, including a desert, a rain-soaked village, and a barren wasteland. Despite Yennefer's efforts, the assassin continues to pursue the queen due to a tracking device hidden in her attire. Kalis, feeling exasperated, blames Yennefer for the situation. In a moment of catharsis, Yennefer creates a portal, jumps through it, and abandons the ungrateful queen. Approaching the queen, the mage is offered the child, but he callously dispatches her with a magical blade, ending her life. Yennefer arrives just in time to rescue the child and flee through another portal to a secluded beach. Tragically, the child does not survive the ordeal. Yennefer reflects on the situation as she buries the child in the dark sand. Yennefer mourns her own unfulfilled destiny, realizing how much she has evolved from the timid sorceress she once was. In Sintra, the mysterious man who infiltrated the feast unveils himself as Lord Urchin of Erlenwald. Queen Calanthe questions his audacity in seeking her daughter's hand in marriage, referring to him as a knight of no renown. She demands he reveal his face, but he insists he cannot do so until the sounding of the 12th bell. Iced disregards this and removes the helmet, exposing the knight's shocking appearance, part man, part hedgehog. Despite Calanthe's command for Geralt to slay the knight, the Witcher refuses, recognizing him as no ordinary monster. The Queen's guards attack, but the knight proves to be a formidable swordsman. Geralt eventually joins the fray, showcasing impressive combat skills alongside the knight. Henry Cavill's portrayal of Geralt demonstrates exceptional swordsmanship, captivating the audience with the show's remarkable choreography. It has been uncovered that, in the past, Urchin saved the life of King Rognar, Calanthe's husband. As a result, he invoked the law of surprise, a tradition where a man saved by another must offer a boon of unknown nature to his savior. For example, the rescuer may request the first thing that welcomes you upon your return home, or something unexpected that you discover at home. Typically, this boon involves the firstborn child of the saved man. The law of surprise is a complex and peculiar aspect of the Witcher lore. The brawl escalates throughout the room, with Iced, who holds a deep reverence for the law of surprise, siding with Geralt and Urchin. It appears that destiny has selected Urchin, hedgehog face and all, to be Pavetta's husband. The concept of the law of surprise draws its inspiration from European folklore and fairy tales, where receiving assistance or being rescued often entails an unexpected cost. This notion is reminiscent of tales like Rumpelstiltskin, a German fairy tale documented by the Brothers Grimm. Within the world of The Witcher, the law of surprise is a tradition believed to be as ancient as humanity, repeatedly referenced in various historical accounts. In the short story, Queen Calanthe acknowledges the truth in his words, and she has no intention of marrying off her daughter to a stranger. This declaration sparks a general uproar among the guests. As the clock strikes midnight, the Queen devises another plan. She demands that Urchin unveil his helm. Upon complying, everyone is shocked to see not the face of a man, but a hedgehog-like creature with spines and fangs. The Queen proudly proclaims that for the law of surprise to take effect, Pavetta must consent herself, assuming that the princess would never willingly choose to accompany such a creature. Back in the Netflix show, Pavetta embraces Urchin, revealing that they had met before and formed a secret bond. Calanthe, displeased with the situation, is urged by Iced to honor destiny to avoid its wrath. Approaching Urchin, Calanthe declares, "Here is your destiny," as she draws a dagger. However, before she can harm the cursed lord, Pavetta lets out a scream, unleashing a powerful surge of magic that sends everyone, including Geralt, flying backwards. The windows shatter and the wind howls. Geralt and Mousesack combine their powers to dispel the magic. "Do you now believe in destiny?" Iced questions Calanthe. "I thought your grandmother's gift had skipped you as it did me," she responds, visibly shocked. In the short story, Geralt and Mousesack have been exchanging silent communication throughout the banquet, primarily through meaningful glances and the druid's magical arrangements of breadcrumbs. However, both have detected a sense of unease in the air. The force appears to be gradually permeating the room, with Urchin also seemingly emanating the force. In the short story, the Queen is taken aback when Princess Pavetta agrees to leave with the knight, causing her to collapse onto her chair. Chaos ensues as the guards and knights attack Urchin, while guests attempt to restrain him. Princess Pavetta's hidden power, which Geralt and Mousesack have sensed, erupts as she witnesses her lover being assaulted. Amidst the commotion, furniture is hurled in every direction and individuals are thrown about. In an attempt to protect Urchin, Geralt and Iced intervene, but Pavetta's power proves too overwhelming. In a surprising turn of events, Kudak's array of animal noises manages to divert the princess's attention, allowing Geralt and Mousesack to bring her back to her senses. The law of surprise is fulfilled as Pavetta and Urchin agree to marry. Calanthe officiates the wedding, breaking Urchin's curse and returning him to his human form. Jaskier predicts that this event will inspire his greatest ballad yet. Calanthe insists on rewarding Geralt for his help, even though he initially refuses any compensation. However, when pressed, he claims the law of surprise, not really planning to ever collect on it. As he does so, Pavetta reveals she is pregnant with Ciri. Mousesack advises Geralt to stay, but he decides to leave, dismissing the idea of destiny. Despite this, Mousesack is certain that Geralt will have a special connection with Pavetta and Urchin's daughter, and warns of potential disaster if he is not present. Geralt ultimately agrees to take the risk. According to certain individuals, there exists a potent curse of elven origin that has been passed down through generations. Those who possess the infamous Hen Ica in their blood are believed to carry within them death and destruction, sowing seeds of hatred and disdain in the hearts of men. It was from this tainted lineage that Ithlinne prophesied the birth of an avenger, destined to bring ruin upon nations and worlds. On the other hand, some argue that the Elder Blood is an exceedingly rare inherited ability, bestowing upon its bearers an unparalleled control over time and space, surpassing even the capabilities of elven sages. Unfortunately, only a few individuals with this gift have been able to fully master it. This incomplete mastery often results in sudden bursts of power, manifesting as unpredictable and uncontrollable explosions which pose great danger. Behind the ominous tales surrounding the curse of the Elder Blood lies the truth of these tragic occurrences. Due to its significance, those who possess the Elder Blood have always been subjects of immense interest to both the powerful figures of the world and the mages. The former relied on the validity of Ithlina's prophecy, hoping for the birth of an avenger capable of world destruction, whom they could manipulate for their own agendas. As for the latter, they sought to harness the magic of Hen Ikaya to expand their knowledge and abilities. However, all these ambitions ultimately came to nothing, as the line of the Elder Blood was severed with the disappearance of Cyrilla Fiona Ellen Rhiannon, the heiress to the Nilfgaardian crown. In the short story, after the commotion subsides, Urchin, also known as Doni, and Pavetta take the opportunity to explain the situation. They reveal that they have been in a relationship for more than a year and have deeply fallen in love with each other. Queen Calanthe, having calmed down, eventually accepts and supports their love, as well as their forthcoming marriage. Meanwhile, Ice Tuasak, who arrived that night to supervise the younger suitors vying for Princess Pavetta's hand, unexpectedly proposes to Queen Calanthe, hinting at a shared history between them. In the short sotir, expressing his gratitude to Geralt for saving his life earlier, Duni offers him anything he desires. In response, Geralt requests that which you already possess but are unaware of, shocking everyone, including Duni and Pavetta, with the revelation that the princess is pregnant. Geralt further asks that their child be raised as a witcher. In the aftermath of the Nilfgaardian invasion from the first episode, we are transported to Sintra. A mysterious figure, concealed in a cloak, discovers Calanthe's lifeless body and proceeds to remove a piece of flesh, consuming it. Cahir, the peculiar rider with a bird-like head who has been pursuing Ciri, observes silently. The individual who consumed the flesh experiences convulsions and is swiftly dispatched by another member of their group. This person then examines the entrails and somehow deduces that Ciri is located within Broccolon Forest. Cahir appears troubled by this revelation, realizing that armies are not the means to access the forest. Additionally, we discover that Mousesack is alive and well. As Cahir's men drag him away, he discreetly seizes a fragment of Calanthe's attire. The tale of Urchin of Elderwold draws parallels to the fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm, particularly in the story of a hedgehog boy and the concept of the law of surprise, as seen in the narrative of Hans my Hedgehog. Back to Ciri. She finds herself immersed in a dream filled with combat and violence. We witness a graphic close-up of a man having his ear sliced off. Then, Cahir, consumed by fury, comes into view. He raises his sword, but Ciri awakens before the blade descends. The leader of the Dryads implores Ciri to drink water from the forest's source. Ciri proceeds to cut into the bark of a colossal, enchanting tree. Sap trickles out, and she consumes it, subsequently finding herself in a peculiar, dreamlike desert. Within this desert stands an even larger tree. Suddenly, an eerie voice calls out to her, asking, "What are you, child?" Ciri, like her mother Pavetta and other women in her family, possesses a remarkable amount of power that she can access in various ways. In the first episode, we witness her scream propelling the Nilfgaardian knight Cahir a great distance when he tries to take her. Additionally, when scared, Ciri can unleash a devastating blast similar to the one her mother used in Sintra at the party. Ciri possesses an uncanny intuition that guides her to different places, such as the Broccolon Forest, where she communicates with the central tree Shankayan. In the pilot, while defending herself against Cahir, she inadvertently disrupts a monolith, a powerful black stone structure that serves as gateways between spheres. This action leads to the formation of a massive crack in the ground, occasionally serving as a portal to another realm. Over time, she discovers her true power lies in creating pathways between dimensions. Bottled Appetites is the fifth installment of the Witcher series, adapted from the short story The Last Wish. It serves as the seventh and concluding tale in The Last Wish. This narrative delves into the events surrounding the initial encounter between Geralt and Yennefer. In a dimly lit attic, the sound of ravens cawing fills the air. A man carefully places a piece of flesh into a jar filled with an unusual liquid. He places the jar on a crowded shelf alongside many others containing various body parts, including an ear. As he gazes at his reflection in the mirror, a smile creeps across his face. With a sense of satisfaction, he removes his cloak and admires his own physique. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerges from the darkness. It is Cahir, the Nilfgaardian soldier who has relentlessly pursued Ciri. The man in the mirror is revealed to be a Doppler, a shape-shifting creature. Dopplers, known by various names such as shifters, vexillings, mimics, doubles, imitators, or pavrats, possess the ability to transform into any individual or creature they have come across, as long as they share a comparable body weight. Originally residing in the plateau close to present-day Novigrad, these shapeshifters eventually relocated to the city itself due to the greater opportunities for their survival. In their natural state, they appear quite unattractive, resembling bald, long-nosed, yellow-eyed dwarfs with elongated limbs, tongues, and noses, somewhat akin to a figurine crafted from dough. Despite this, they have the ability to transform into any individual they are familiar with, as long as the person is similar in size. Their mimicry is so precise that, aside from physical appearance, they adopt characteristics such as voice, skills, mindset, and behaviors. They can accomplish this effortlessly without the need for prior observation. Additionally, they can morph parts of their bodies into clothing or tools, like a sword or musical instrument. Nevertheless, their powers have restrictions. Shape-shifting is only possible if they avoid contact with silver, and any object formed from their body reverts to flesh once separated from the Doppler's body. Cahir approaches the Doppler, who refers to himself as we, and presents him with an offer, a job to carry out an assassination on behalf of Nilfgaard. In a chamber brimming with hourglasses, Yennefer converses with a sorcerer named Hemet. He inquires about the unconventional path they have chosen, free from the constraints of the Brotherhood of Sorcerers. Yennefer appears unimpressed by the notion. Later, in the city of Rinda, she assists a struggling man with his bedroom performance issues. For a small fee, Yennefer casts a spell akin to a magical Viagra, resolving his dilemma. It seems she must find ways to earn a living. Their interaction is disrupted by the mayor, who demands a fee from Yennefer for practicing her craft, a magical tax. Meanwhile, the man continues to exhibit his arousal. About a year after the ball in Sintra, Geralt is seen fishing in a lake with a net on the outskirts of Rinda when Jaskier finds him, suggesting that it has been a while since they last met. Geralt clarifies that he is not fishing but searching for a djinn, a type of genie. He criticizes Jaskier's singing, comparing it to a pie without filling. Offended, Jaskier retorts by telling Geralt that he needs a nap. As Geralt pulls an amphora with a wizard seal out of the water, Jaskier snatches it and demands an apology for the insult. In the ensuing struggle, the jar breaks open, releasing the djinn. Geralt then desires peace and quiet, unaware that he holds power over the djinn. Jaskier suddenly starts choking and coughing up blood. The mysterious swelling in Jaskier's throat is a result of the djinn's magic, silencing him and fulfilling Geralt's wish for peace and quiet. Djinns, much like those found in fairy tales, possess immense power and are able to perform extraordinary tasks. When captured, they become obligated to grant 3 wishes to their captor. Once these wishes have been granted, the djinns are released from their captivity. A djinn is an influential spirit of the air, a concentrated form of the power of that element with consciousness and distinct characteristics, which are usually unpleasant. According to mythology, djinn possess the ability to grant even the most improbable desires, although they do so with great reluctance. Extraordinarily skilled sorcerers have the ability to capture and subdue these entities. By doing so, the sorcerer can harness their energy and utilize it to cast spells without relying on conventional sources of power. However, only a few individuals have successfully accomplished this task, as djinn fiercely resist such a fate with unwavering determination. To confine a djinn and compel it to obey, one must first weaken its strength, which is an incredibly challenging endeavor. Battling a djinn proves to be an immense challenge. They possess the ability to effortlessly unleash spells that even the most skilled human mages would struggle to replicate after years of practice. Additionally, through their control over the element of air, they have the power to conjure fierce storms, hurricanes, and strong gales. Fortunately, being magical creatures, they are susceptible to silver, while steel is ineffective against them. In the short story, while attempting to catch fish for breakfast one morning, Dandelion and Geralt unexpectedly pull up an ancient, sealed amphora. Dandelion, filled with excitement, disregards Geralt's explicit warnings and attempts to open the vase. In the ensuing struggle, the vase slips from their grasp, releasing a large cloud of red mist, a genie, or djinn to be more precise. Geralt quickly seeks cover, but Dandelion remains steadfast, convinced he knows exactly what is unfolding, and proceeds to recite his list of 3 wishes. However, the genie chooses not to grant even the first wish of the bard, which was for his rival to perish from apoplexy, instead opting to strangle Dandelion. Geralt swiftly escorts him to a nearby encampment, where they encounter Chillyravenart, a skilled elf healer. Jaskia's throat swells alarmingly, resembling that of a frog, and he expels copious amounts of thick, black-red blood through coughing. The elf healer informs them that his medicine can only provide a temporary respite, as this is a magical injury that necessitates a magical remedy. Curious, Geralt inquires about the presence of a mage within the city, causing the elf healer to appear troubled. Regrettably, the city's mayor has banned mages, although there is one held captive within his residence. The healer cautions Geralt about the mage's dangerous and cunning nature, yet the Witcher remains unperturbed. In the short story, Geralt hastens to aid his comrade and, following an apparently futile struggle, opts to employ some traditional wisdom he had previously dismissed as superstition. The Witcher seizes the amphora seal that has fallen to the ground and recites an exorcism. The genie releases the bard and vanishes across the river, but Dandelion remains in poor condition. It appears that his throat and larynx have been severely affected by the djinn, and he requires urgent assistance. In Rinda, Yennefer and her former mentor, Tissaia, engage in a conversation. It has been years since they last saw each other, ever since Yennefer managed to secure a position in Aedon's court. However, Yennefer appears to have abandoned her duties as the king she served, Verfuril, has passed away and been replaced by another ruler. During their discussion, Tissaia discloses Yennefer's true motive. Finding a cure for her infertility, she expresses her belief that this quest is futile and has transformed Yennefer into a state of pure chaos. Tissaia implores Yennefer to return to Aretuza, but she declines and requests her to leave instead. Frustrated, Tissaia departs through a portal. Yennefer, similar to the majority of sorceresses, is unable to conceive and covertly pursued a method to regain her ability to bear children. For sorceresses, infertility is a result of the detrimental impact of magic on their reproductive system. Later, a healer warns Geralt about the dangerous and cunning nature of this particular mage, but the Witcher remains unfazed. Geralt travels to the mayor of Rinda's residence accompanied by a sick Jaskia. Upon arrival, he discovers the mayor in a state of confusion, his mind clouded by Yennefer's magic and completely naked. Geralt finds himself in a chamber where an is taking place, and amidst the entangled bodies, he spots Yennefer, who seems to be aware of his reputation as the renowned White Wolf. The Witcher beseeches her to heal Jaskier, to which she agrees upon seeing the djinn's amphora lid, specifically the seal on it. In the short story, after a day's journey, they reach the gates of Rinda, only to be informed that nobody is allowed to pass through the gates from dusk till dawn without a royal safe conduct letter or evidence of nobility. The guard offers them shelter in the gatehouse until morning, noting that Dandelion will be better off there than outside. With no other choice, the Witcher agrees. In the short story, Geralt patiently awaits the break of dawn, anticipating the moment when he will cross paths with 2 elves named Cheraden and Erdil, as well as a half-elf knight named Bratimir. They enlighten him about the strict regulations and severe consequences imposed on spellcasting within the city, leading to a boycott by the mages against Rinda. However, amidst this defiance of the law, there is one sorceress who fearlessly practices her magic within the city limits, Yennefer of Vengerberg. She resides in the sanctuary provided by the Novigradian merchant ambassador, Bo Berent. In the episode, Jaskier is sleeping and recuperating. His neck is no longer swollen and repulsive. Yennefer claims she can discern the precise breed and hue of Geralt's steed, as its scent lingers upon him. Yennefer immerses herself in the bath, engaging in a battle of intellect with Geralt. Although romance has yet to blossom, it is evident that they relish each other's company. Geralt observes that the incantation Yennefer employs to mend Jaskier bears resemblance to the symbol on the jar's lid, leading him to deduce her desire to locate the djinn for her own purposes. While he remains unaware of her intentions, we are privy to her aspiration to employ it in curing her infertility. With considerable effort, Yennefer clouds Geralt's mind and induces him into slumber. In the short story, as the sun finally rises, Geralt ventures into the city with the sole purpose of locating the sorceress. Upon reaching Bo Berent's residence, he is greeted by Cerberus, a sort of doorman. Despite engaging in a futile conversation, Geralt decides to resort to the persuasive power of gold, rendering Cerberus unconscious with a swift blow from his money purse. Subsequently, he drags the unconscious Cerberus into an unoccupied room where a female staff member is peacefully snoring. In the short story, the Witcher proceeds to the basement where he encounters an intoxicated Bo Berent. It becomes apparent that the ambassador is on a mission to acquire apple juice for his guest and seeks Geralt's assistance. Obliging, Geralt retrieves the juice only to discover Bo lying unconscious upon his return. In the short story, noticing a staircase in close proximity, the Witcher ascends to discover Yennefer's bedchamber. The sorceress is in a state of slumber, but upon awakening her, she promptly requests his departure. However, Geralt manages to persuade Yennefer to aid Dandelion right after she takes a bath. As Yennefer indulges in her bath, Geralt is captivated by her exquisite appearance, yet he also acknowledges that it may be a result of sorcery, considering that most girls who become sorceresses are inherently unattractive or disfigured. Setting aside these musings, he chooses to simply appreciate her beauty as they discuss Dandelion's predicament. Once attired, Yennefer opens a portal and the two embark towards the tavern where Dandelion is recuperating. Chillyravenart awakens Geralt from his slumber in a jail cell. The elf brings up Geralt's alleged rampage, of which he has no recollection. Evidently, Geralt had kicked a pawnbroker in a sensitive area and publicly humiliated an apothecary by beating him with a belt. Curiously, these were the same individuals who had voted for Yennefer's exile from Rinda. The jailer proceeds to physically assault Geralt, expressing his desire to play with a Witcher, before the jailer's head inexplicably explodes. It becomes apparent that Geralt is, in fact, the master of the djinn. In the short story, returning to Erdil's inn, Chillyravenart and Geralt find themselves seated downstairs, patiently awaiting news regarding the bard's condition. They engage in a brief conversation about Yennefer while sipping on cups of herbal tea. Chillyravenart explicitly warns Geralt that, despite her beauty, Yennefer should not be trusted. At the mayor's residence, Yennefer expresses her desire to summon the djinn and become its vessel. As Geralt becomes aware of her intentions, he hurries to assist her. The djinn communicates through Yennefer, taking control of her body. It presents Geralt with a final wish, tempting him with power, wealth, or even the chance to no longer be a Witcher. Geralt makes his wish, but the exact words remain unknown. Just like in the original story, the details are left to one's imagination. Nevertheless, the djinn departs from Yennefer's body, saving her. Initially furious, she eventually engages in a passionate encounter with Geralt, marking the beginning of an enduring, albeit occasionally tumultuous, relationship. In the short story, after some time, Yennefer calls for Geralt to come upstairs. Dandelion is peacefully asleep, and the only matter left to discuss is the price. Geralt's priority is to ensure Dandelion's safety before negotiating a price. However, Yennefer demands her payment immediately and reveals that she has trapped Geralt in the room. The Witcher finds himself unable to move. Following an unproductive argument, Geralt loses consciousness and wakes up in a cell with honest thieves, an elderly man and Chillyravenart. Chillyravenart explains to Geralt that, under the influence of Yennefer's spell, he had caused chaos in the town, punishing those who had insulted Yennefer. The local apothecary, Laurelnose, was even publicly humiliated by Geralt. As they contemplate their predicament, they are interrupted by 3 guards entering the cell. One of the guards begins to provoke Geralt while the others restrain him, then proceeds to repeatedly strike the Witcher in the abdomen. In an attempt to minimize harm, Geralt tries to provoke the guard into knocking him out. He expresses a desire for the guard to simply explode, and to everyone's astonishment, the guard does just that. In the short story, the Witcher and the elf are brought before the town's mayor, Neville, and the priest, Krep. The mayor is displeased with the situation, but before he can make a decision, Dandelion suddenly appears in the room through a magical portal that materializes on the wall. The bard, with a fully restored voice, proclaims that he wants everyone present to believe in the Witcher's innocence. Yennefer instructed him to do so, sending him through the portal to use his final wish to free the genie so she could capture it. Dandelion barely has time to clarify when a loud commotion is heard outside, overpowering the current thunderstorm. Rushing to the window, the group witnesses Yennefer luring the genie to the town, attempting to seize its incredible powers. Despite Yennefer's spells binding it to Erdal's Inn, the genie proves to be much stronger than anticipated, wreaking havoc in the town. Geralt realizes that the genie was fulfilling his wishes, not Dandelion's, as he was the one holding the seal last. His first wish was the incantation on the genie, and his second was the guard's explosion, leaving the genie awaiting Geralt's third wish. Since the genie still has to fulfill its master's final wish, it remains unbound and cannot be captured by Yennefer. Geralt guides everyone to safety and instructs Krep to stabilize the trace of the portal Dandelion disappeared through. Despite some objections, the priest complies and the portal materializes once more. Geralt leaps into the portal to rescue the sorceress. However, Yennefer, who is focused on trapping her genie, refuses to be saved and tries to banish Geralt through another portal. In a swift move, the Witcher seizes Yennefer and they both get pulled into the portal. Upon exiting the portal, Yennefer breaks free from Geralt's grasp and swiftly returns through the portal, with Geralt closely following her. On the outside, onlookers are horrified as the genie wreaks havoc in the city. Following a struggle between Yennefer and Geralt where her powers are diminishing, the sorceress manages to ensnare Geralt. After a tense exchange, Geralt finally clarifies the situation to Yennefer, who insists that he make his final wish, promising him anything he desires. Reflecting on Yennefer's past appearance as a hunchback before becoming a sorceress, Geralt makes his decision for his last wish. Shortly after, the genie breaks loose, causing the inn to crumble and a hush falls over the village. Amidst the debris of the inn, Yennefer is embraced by Geralt in a moment of closeness and intimacy. Before long, Yennefer and Geralt engage in a passionate embrace. The episode then shifts to the depths of Brokilon Forest. Brokilon is home to various intelligent species, some of which are on the brink of extinction beyond the forest boundaries. In addition to dryads and hamadryads, individuals may come across leprechauns, pucks, and other nymphs like rusalki. While the dryad community does not consist of members from these other races, dryads do interact with them occasionally for mating purposes. The dryads of Brokilon have established a quasi-monarchic society, with Queen Aethna at the helm for many centuries, ruling from Duin Canel. The forest is governed through the use of messengers and operatives, including individuals like Sinead and Milvar. Other non-dryad races in Brokilon typically prefer to live alone or in small groups. Dryads possess exceptional archery skills, enabling them to effortlessly eliminate a human target from a distance of 200 feet without detection. This remarkable ability is frequently employed to demarcate their territory. If an arrow lands at an intruder's feet or in a nearby tree, it serves as a warning that they are not permitted to proceed any further. Disregarding this cautionary sign will result in a fatal shot. To prevent the accumulation of decomposing bodies, dryads strategically establish their borders near rivers, allowing the current to wash away any remains. Dryads employ various traps to safeguard their forest. Their elusive nature renders it nearly impossible for even the most vigilant individuals to navigate the woods without the assistance of a native guide. Furthermore, they possess the ability to create a bewildering magical fog or entice unsuspecting individuals into the lairs of dangerous creatures. In close quarters combat, dryads are known to utilize wooden spears, javelins, and knives. Mousesack makes his appearance. However, it is not the real Mousesack, but a cunning Doppler assuming his form. Ciri's face lights up with joy as she sees him, unaware of the imposter's true identity. The Doppler informs her that he knows the whereabouts of Geralt of Rivia and offers to guide her to him. Trusting her old friend without a second thought, Ciri bids farewell to the Dryads and leaves the forest behind. This adaptation differs significantly from the novels. In Sword of Destiny, Geralt ventures into Brokilon to deliver a message to Aethna, who despises humans and governs the forested area and its non-human denizens. During his visit, Geralt encounters a 10-year-old Ciri fleeing from a potential arranged marriage. Geralt intervenes to save Ciri from a giant centipede attack, and they form a bond as they navigate through the forest. After delivering his message, Ciri decides to depart Brokilon with Geralt. However, they are ambushed by raiders at the forest edge. Fortunately, Mousesack and a group of Dryads come to their rescue. Geralt leaves Ciri under Mousesack's protection, much to Ciri's dismay, as he continues his adventures. The Bounds of Reason serves as the inspiration for the 6th episode of Netflix's The Witcher series, titled Rare Species. The episode begins with Jaskier still accompanying Geralt as he writes a new song. Geralt has been away for an hour, hunting a monster, and the men who hired him are growing impatient. They have come to the conclusion that Geralt is dead and try to steal his saddlebags, but Jaskier objects. The situation is about to escalate into violence when a kind-looking old man named Borch 3 Jackdaws intervenes, accompanied by 2 Zerrikanian warriors, Tyre and Vea. In a swift motion, Tyre breaks the thief's neck. Suddenly, Geralt returns with the bloody head of the monster, landing next to the group. Borch addresses Geralt, saying, "I've been searching for you, Geralt of Rivia." The short story follows the quest to find the mythical golden dragon, Vjuzhanina. It delves into the evolving bond between the sorceress Yennefer and the witcher Geralt, a relationship that originated in previous short stories. In a bustling tavern named the Pensive Dragon, Borch expresses his surprise at dining with a witcher for the first time, noting that he has very few new experiences left. The conversation turns to a green dragon sighted in King Nidamir's mountains, with locals attempting to steal its treasure but only managing to injure it. As Geralt and Borch discuss the dragon, Jaskier attempts to charm Tyre and Vea by comparing their necks to that of a sexy goose guzzling. In the short story, Geralt had been commissioned to eliminate a basilisk that was lurking in a dilapidated crypt near Bearfield. As the narrative commences, a considerable amount of time has passed since the Witcher ventured into the crypt, leading the villagers to whisper among themselves that he must have perished. Otherwise, he would have resurfaced. Acting upon this assumption, they decide to seize the Witcher's possessions. Just as they are about to lay their hands on his belongings, a knight named Borch 3 Jackdaws suddenly appears. So, accompanied by 2 Zerrikanian warriors named Teia and Vea, he makes it abundantly clear that this would be an ill-advised course of action, and the presence of his entourage gives the mob pause for thought. In the short story, Geralt emerges from the crypt, covered in grime and dragging the head of the now-deceased basilisk. Confronted with a very much alive witcher and the knight's entourage, the peasants retreat and flee, leaving the village elder to compensate Geralt with the agreed-upon sum of 200 lintars. The witcher and Borch exchange greetings and expressions of gratitude, after which the knight extends an invitation to Geralt to join him at a local tavern called the Pensive Dragon. Geralt is pleased to observe that his identity as a witcher does not deter potential friendship, and he accepts the invitation for a pleasant evening together. Upon arriving at the inn, the group settles down to enjoy an evening filled with delectable food, fine wine, and engaging conversation. During their discussion, Borch poses a question to Geralt, inquiring whether he would be willing to slay dragons. Geralt firmly states that he would not, as it is not the dragons who pose a threat to humanity, but rather the other way around. This response brings a sense of satisfaction to the knight, who then excuses himself momentarily. In his absence, Geralt seizes the opportunity to ask Vea about her reasons for traveling with Borch. To his surprise, she replies, "Because he is the epitome of beauty." The following day, Geralt, Borch, and the Zerrikanians embark on their journey towards Hengfors. However, their progress is halted at the border, where the only bridge spanning the Bra River stands. They are informed that they cannot proceed without a letter of safe conduct. Coincidentally, Dandelion, who has also been denied passage, is among the other travelers. He informs Geralt that King Nidomir is currently in the vicinity, hunting a dragon that has recently made an appearance. King Nidomir has organized a hunt to slay the dragon, and Borsch invites Geralt to join his team. Initially hesitant, Geralt changes his mind upon seeing Yennefer on the opposing side, looking stunning in furs and captivating him with her violet eyes. Jaskier, recalling past events, tries to distance himself from Yennefer. Before he can voice his objections, Geralt simply states, "He's in." Borsch is thrilled, while Jaskier is less than pleased. In the short story, following the alleged terrorization of a nearby village by a dragon, the villagers made the decision to capture and eliminate the creature. To entice the beast, Sheepbagger, the local shoemaker, strategically placed a dead sheep filled with various poisonous substances such as hellebore, belladonna, hemlock, sulfur, pitch, and tax amidst their flock. Swallowing it whole, the dragon attempted to take flight but swiftly plummeted to the ground. At this juncture, the gravedigger and the village fool ventured forth to ascertain whether the dragon had truly perished. Unfortunately, their ill-advised decision proved detrimental, as the dragon was not dead, but rather severely weakened. In its weakened state, the dragon managed to extract their blood before making another futile attempt to fly away. After several more unsuccessful endeavors, the dragon managed to hobble away, clearly suffering. However, the villagers remain resolute in their desire to eliminate the creature and claim its treasure, as dragons are known to possess vast hoards of wealth. The Witcher finds the entire narrative quite absurd since dragons have not been sighted in the vicinity for years. Borsch, on the other hand, shows interest in the fact that the dragon was not slain, but he is more concerned about the lack of refreshments and instructs his girls to fetch some. King Nidomir has his own motives for pursuing the creature, and surprisingly, the treasure is not his main objective. He seeks the title of Dragon Killer, which would aid him in securing the hand of the Princess of Malaya. This would fulfill his political aspirations and align perfectly with a fabricated local legend that dictates she can only marry a dragon killer. The king wishes to keep this plan concealed, so he issues a call for a crew to hunt the dragon. Ike of Denesla, a knight, Boholt and his men, the Crinford Reavers, Yarpen Zigrin, a dwarf and his crew, the shoemaker Sheepbagger, and a sorceress respond to this call. After some time, Taya and Vea come back with beer and a mage named Doragray, who expresses interest in joining the expedition but not for hunting. Doragray, like the others, lacks a letter of safe conduct. Dandelion quickly points out that one of his colleagues already has one, the sorceress with the king's party, who turns out to be Yennefer. Upon learning this, Geralt decides to join the hunt. He bids farewell to Borsch, who mentions that there is no rush to head to Hengfors and offers to continue traveling with the Witcher. Eager to move forward, Geralt tries to bribe the border guard with 200 gold, but the guard declines. Borsch raises the offer to 500 gold and convinces the guard to let them pass. Doragray adds to the persuasion by using magic to ignite a nearby pine tree. With the guard convinced, the group crosses the river and proceeds towards the dragon hunting expedition. The following day marks the commencement of the hunt. Yarpen Zigrin, the leader of a team of dwarfs known for his foul-mouthed and ill-tempered nature, greets Geralt with a handshake. Additionally, we observe that Yennefer is accompanied by a pompous knight named Sir Ike, whose armor shines brightly in the sunlight. He passionately exclaims, "For kingdom and glory," without a hint of irony. Another group, the Reavers, is led by a disagreeable fellow named Boholt. In the short story, the Witcher and his companions cross paths with Yarpen Zigrin. The different factions hold contrasting intentions regarding the dragon. Boholt and Yarpen have forged an alliance with Yennefer. Ike desires to engage in a fair duel with the dragon. Dandelion wishes to personally witness the unfolding events and compose an epic ballad. Geralt encounters Yennefer, yet the sorceress shows no interest in conversing with him. She harbors resentment towards him for vanishing without a trace for a span of 4 years. Yennefer reveals that her sole purpose for being present is to gather dragon tissue. which she hopes to utilize in creating an elixir to address her infertility. She yearns to become a mother, but is unable to do so. Niedermir grows weary of the quarreling and appoints Gillenstein as marshal. The journey carries on, Yennefer and Geralt clenching their jaws, Doregere playfully taunting Geralt and accusing him of being a killer of endangered creatures, and Ike vehemently demanding the eradication of non-human beings. Located on the outskirts of Broccolin Forest, Mousak accompanies Ciri and Dara. The duo interrogates the druid regarding his survival during the siege of Sintra and the significance of Ciri and Geralt's meeting. The Doppler becomes impatient with their inquiries, prompting Dara to sense that something is amiss. Exiting Broccolon, they find themselves once again in the desolate, icy woods where Ciri has been wandering for most of the season. Upon returning to the hunt, Jaskier decides to separate from the group in order to gather some berries. In doing so, he unintentionally disturbs a creature known as a Hirika, which appears strange and somewhat pitiful. Geralt suggests that the creature is likely hungry and advises leaving it be. However, Ike disregards this advice and proceeds to attack the defenseless beast, turning it into a meal. The knight later suffers from severe stomach issues due to consuming the Hirika. After rushing off to relieve himself, Japan discovers Ike the following morning with fatal injuries. Yennefer suspects the Reavers may be behind the tragic incident. In the woods, Ciri manages to corner the Doppler by asking about Mousak's birthplace, Skellige. The shapeshifter reaches its breaking point and discloses its true identity, confessing to Ciri that it murdered the genuine druid. Dara tries to strike with a dagger, but the Doppler overpowers him until its skin begins to burn inexplicably, forcing it to let go of the weapon. Ciri seizes hold of the dagger once again and presses it firmly against the Doppler's throat. Ciri mentions Kahir, referring to him as the man with the winged helmet, and wonders why he is going through so much trouble. Before the shapeshifter can respond, a struggle ensues, resulting in Dara getting injured and Ciri fleeing into the forest. Suddenly, a soldier from Nilfgaard, dressed in the black armor, captures her. When she regains consciousness, she finds herself in a room with Kahir standing before her, urging her not to scream. He acknowledges her fear and assures her that he never intended to torment her. We then shift back to the dragon hunt, where Japan is informing Geralt and the others about a shortcut that will enable them to outpace the Reavers. This shortcut consists of a precarious, rickety wooden platform attached to the side of the mountain, with a treacherous drop below. In the short story, as the team reaches a narrow section on the already treacherous path, they find themselves trapped in a sudden rockslide. Most of them successfully make it across the next bridge before it crumbles, but a portion of the team is left stranded. Geralt and Yennefer plummet into the canyon, yet in the nick of time, the Witcher plunges his dagger into the bridge's timbers and clings onto it with both hands. Yen desperately clings onto the scabbard strapped to his back. Suspended precariously, they overhear the conversations taking place above them, including a sinister plan to wait until the sorceress exhausts herself and meets her demise. Eventually, the Honorable Ike decides to toss them a magical elven rope. Meanwhile, in the Netflix show, during their attempt to take a shortcut, Borsch, T, and Veya tragically meet their demise. Geralt, visibly distraught, finds solace in spending the night with Yennefer. In the short story, Borsch and the Zerrikanians vanish, causing tension within the team. Ike, believing the presence of heathens like the Witcher and the dwarves to be the cause, sees the avalanche as a divine punishment. Geralt briefly argues with him, but ultimately chooses to stay. Suddenly, shouts ring out, revealing the presence of a dragon nearby, although not the one they were hunting. The group is faced with an immense golden dragon, a creature Geralt had never believed to exist. Despite Dandelion and Doregere's passionate pleas, the group decides to slay the beast. The troubadour views the dragon as a living legend, believing it should be left undisturbed. Sheepbagger suggests using the same tactic as before, using a poisoned sheep carcass as bait. However, Japan, the dwarf, dismisses this plan. The dragon, using telepathy, chooses to communicate with the team. He presents them with two choices: either leave or engage in a fair duel using conventional weapons, without the use of fireballs, flight, or other forms of magic. Yennefer attempts to persuade Geralt into slaying the dragon, assuring him that it would resolve all their issues and restore their previous bond. Nevertheless, Geralt recalls her previous statements and doesn't agree to. He firmly states that eliminating the dragon would go against his code of honor. In the meantime, Gyllenstiern grows increasingly impatient after witnessing Ike's swift defeat. He turns to Boholt and his men for support. However, Boholt remains unimpressed with the current situation. He accuses Gyllenstiern of using Ike as a pawn in his own battles and suspects that Gyllenstiern plans to run away with the spoils. The leader of the Reavers renounces their agreement to assist the king, declaring that they will take matters into their own hands and slay the dragon themselves. They believe that the Caingon contingent of the group has failed in their mission. Sheepbagger pleads with the king to allow the village militia, who are still en route via a different path, to kill the dragon. However, Gyllenstiern feels that the situation is spiraling out of control. He seeks the king's guidance on what the group should do next. With that, the king and his men depart from the scene. Boholt, Yarpen and Yennefer are all still determined to slay a dragon, but Doregore takes it upon himself to personally end the dragon hunt. However, Yennefer has different intentions and surprises Doregore with her swiftness. The mage quickly becomes overwhelmed by the Reavers and the dwarves. Geralt and Dandelion come to his aid, attempting to assist him. Just as the Witcher gains the upper hand in the battle, Yennefer paralyzes him, causing him to collapse helplessly to the ground. Yennefer then orders for the three men to be tied to nearby wagons to keep them out of the way. In the Netflix show, they ascend the mountain and stumble upon the dragon's lair, a cavern skillfully carved into the rocky terrain. Only the lifeless green dragon lies there, nestled beside a colossal egg. To their astonishment, Taya and Vea, who were presumed dead, suddenly reappear. "Stay back," Geralt warns, as he realizes the green dragon has perished, and is taken aback by the presence of another mythical creature, a majestic gold dragon, materializing before him. In the short story, Yennefer turns on the Reavers and the dwarves, warning them to leave immediately or face the consequences. She threatens to use a spell to castrate them all if they refuse to comply. However, Yarpen seizes the opportunity and momentarily incapacitates Yennefer by striking her forehead with a metal ball. While Yennefer is disoriented, the Reavers take advantage and restrain her by binding her hands tightly with rope, paying special attention to her fingers. They also gag her to prevent her from using magic against them. Boholt seizes the opportunity to forcefully expose her and touch them, despite her futile attempts to object. Subsequently, she finds herself bound to a wagon wheel, positioned right beside the Witcher and within the bard's line of sight. Dandelion, true to his nature, appears more preoccupied with gazing at the sorceress's exposed. This leaves Boholt, his men, and the dwarves to confront the dragon. While they gather and discuss their next course of action, the dragon decides to take matters into its own hands, expressing impatience with their delay. The Reavers initially display confidence, but their efforts prove no more successful than Ike's. The dragon surpasses them all in skill. With a single sweep of Villentretenmerth's tail, Yarpen and his entire crew are knocked down. They quickly recover and hastily retreat towards the cliffs. In the short story, the true purpose of the dragon's fierce protection becomes evident. It is not a hoard of treasure, as anticipated, but a baby dragon. The newly hatched and diminutive dragon immediately gravitates towards Yennefer, affectionately nuzzling against her, much to Dandelion's envy. It becomes apparent that the dragon Sheepbagger had poisoned in the village must have been the mother. Abruptly, the sound of wagons rumbling catches everyone's attention as the local militia, led by Sheepbagger, finally arrives. The entire village descends upon the dragon, overwhelming the beast with sheer numbers and eventually ensnaring it in nets. Yennefer, now able to speak, urges the Witcher to use his Igni sign to burn the ropes around her ankles. Initially hesitant due to the risk of harming her, Geralt eventually complies at her insistence, acknowledging it as their only chance. Once freed, albeit not unscathed, Yennefer retaliates by casting spells at the villagers. Initially unsuccessful with her first attempt turning only one wagon yellow, she later succeeds in transforming an entire garrison into toads, squaring the wheels of another wagon and whimsically changing random villagers into different creatures. Meanwhile, the Zerrikanians resurface and begin efficiently dispatching the remaining locals, releasing the dragon, who immediately sets off in pursuit of Sheepbagger. The cobbler meets a rather gruesome demise witnessed by all present, but their focus quickly shifts back to their own predicament as Vea now prepares to execute Yennefer. Fortunately for the sorceress, villain Mirth intervenes and proclaims that they will not be harming Lady Yennefer. In fact, they are grateful for her assistance and orders Vea to untie the prisoners. He then summons the dwarves who are still clinging to the nearby cliff, instructing them to attend to the reavers who are in need of aid. He assures everyone that the killing spree has come to an end. The majestic dragon then reverts to his human form, that of the knight known as Borch 3 Jackdaws. It appears that Borch is actually a dragon who assumes human form. He attracts too much attention otherwise. Geralt inquires as to why he chooses to take on human form. Borch explains that while it is true that dragons typically feel only disgust towards humans, personally, he has a fondness for them. Borch expresses his gratitude to Geralt and Yennefer for their assistance and remarks that it is clear to everyone that the Witcher and the sorceress are destined for each other. However, he sadly acknowledges that their union will not come to fruition. Furthermore, much to Yennefer's disappointment, he admits that he is unable to cure her infertility. Even the powerful magic of golden dragons has its limitations. In a swift transformation, Borch reverts back to his dragon form and pledges his eternal friendship to Geralt before departing into the sunset with his new companion and Zerrikanian allies. As they watch him disappear, the Witcher finally comprehends Vea's statement. Cahir, displaying a more gentle demeanor, informs Ciri, "The white flame has united us." However, she remains wary of him because he has been pursuing her for 6 episodes. Suddenly, the Doppler emerges, masquerading as Cahir. A battle ensues. The Doppler criticizes Cahir for his belief in the prophecy. Cahir, the genuine one, cuts the shapeshifter's face, causing it to flee. The scene transitions to Ciri, bound in the forest. Once again, she finds herself in the woods. A silhouette emerges in the foreground, initially believed to be the Doppler, only to reveal itself as Dara. He releases her from her restraints, yet they engage in a heated argument before parting ways. Meanwhile, Fringilla, now a mage aligned with Nilfgaard, tends to Cahir's injuries. Ciri is of utmost importance, she declares. She recounts how Cahir was chosen by the White Flame, anointing him. Cahir cleans his sword, gazes menacingly into the camera, and utters, "The time of the sword and the axe is nigh." The 7th episode of Netflix's The Witcher series, titled Before a Fall, is an adaptation of the short story The Sword of Destiny. This is the tale where Geralt and Ciri, his unexpected destiny, meet for the first time. Very little from the short story is used as source material for the episode. The Witcher's non-linear chronology is particularly evident in this episode, as it jumps between different time periods, much like Yennefer's leaps through portals in the 4th episode. Geralt climbs a hill and observes an unbelievably lengthy procession of Nilfgaardian soldiers dressed in black as they march through the Amul Pass, a pass that, as we discovered in the 1st episode, leads directly to Sintra. We are witnessing the initial stages of the invasion. The Nilfgaardian Empire did not always possess the formidable power it holds today. In the past, the Nilfgaardians were regarded as a source of amusement and mockery throughout the continent. In the 4th episode of the 1st season, titled Of Banquets, Bastards and Burials, a Nilfgaardian lord faces humiliation and derision from the northern nobility as he seeks to propose to Pavetta. The sole reason for this treatment was his Nilfgaardian origin. Even Calanthe, the queen, joins in and refers to Nilfgaard as the inferior region of the south. The roots of their origins can be traced back to the 2nd century when the initial settlers intermingled with the Black Sede elves. This fusion gave rise to a nation deeply influenced by elven language, beliefs, customs, and culture. In the early 12th century, Torisvar Emrys seized control of the Nilfgaardian Senate, establishing absolute power and introducing the term empire. 100 years later, Emperor Fergus var Emrys conquered Aetolia and Gemera in 1216, while Vicovaro willingly joined their ranks. However, Fergus was overthrown in 1233 by the usurper, who not only killed Fergus, but also cursed his son Emir, transforming him into a hedgehog. Under the usurper's rule, Nilfgaard continued to expand its territories, annexing lands such as Ebbing, Metinna, Nazaire, and Meicht. It was only with the return of Fergus's son, Emhyr Emreis, known as the White Flame, that Nilfgaard truly began its transformation into a formidable continental power that the northern kingdoms could no longer disregard. Upon reclaiming his rightful title as emperor, Emhyr utilized Nilfgaard's well-established militaristic philosophy and war machine to launch numerous invasions into the northern kingdoms. Additionally, we catch a glimpse of Ciri long after the invasion as she seeks passage to Skellige in a village. A kind-hearted woman offers her shelter and sustenance. However, Ciri repays her kindness by stealing one of her horses and swiftly riding away. Skellige, also known as the Skellige Isles or the Isles of Skellige, is an archipelago located in the Great Sea. It is part of the Northern Kingdoms and consists of 6 islands. Situated off the coast of Sintra and southwest of Sidaris and Verdun, Skellige is renowned for its legendary corsairs and swift longships that navigate various oceans. The inhabitants of Skellige are under the rule of the King of the Skellige Isles, who was chosen by the Jarls of the 7 major clans during traditional moots. However, in reality, the kings usually come from the same clan or have some form of familial connection. Despite the consistently strained relations with the majority of the northern realms, their alliance with Sintra remained steadfast, thanks to the matrimonial union between Queen Calanthe and Aes Tuasac of Skellige. Following King Aes' demise in the Battle of Marnadal, the Skelliges directed their raiding efforts towards the Nilfgaardian Empire as a means of seeking retribution. In the depths of Sintra's castle, Geralt talks about his encounter with the Nilfgaardian army to Mousak, describing it as a sea of black and gold in the Amel Mountains. As they converse, a band of assassins sent by Calanthe targets Geralt. However, he manages to survive the attack and confronts Calanthe with anger. Geralt insists on protecting Ciri as he believes it is his duty. Calanthe, on the other hand, is hesitant to hand over her granddaughter. Mousak reminds her that Geralt claimed Ciri through the law of surprise, and refusing to fulfill this destiny would be unwise. Calanthe expresses her reluctance, stating, "Ciri is all I have left of my daughter." The events of Episode 4, which occurred 12 years ago in the show's timeline, reveal that Princess Pavetta and her husband, Urchin, have supposedly died at sea. In the short story, Geralt encounters a tragic scene on his journey to Brokilon to deliver a message to Aetna, the Queen of the Dryads. He discovers the lifeless body of a young boy around 15 years old with a fatal arrow lodged in his skull. It is evident to the experienced Witcher that the boy had unknowingly trespassed into the Dryads' territory, meeting a fate shared by others before him. The warning shot was fired, halting the human in their tracks. However, the boy, in a state of panic, fled in the opposite direction, deeper into the Dryads' territory. Yet another shot rang out, this time without any intention of serving as a warning. Geralt quickens his pace, hoping to catch up with the individuals he has been trailing and persuade them to turn back. Unfortunately, it is too late. He stumbles upon a second lifeless body, that of an adult male, and then a third. Suddenly, he hears a rustling sound. Identifying its origin, he is taken aback to find Fraxinete. Fraxinete appears to be in a dire state, but his sole concern is that Geralt locates the princess. As he attempts to extract the hefty man from his hiding spot, an arrow narrowly misses the Witcher's head, followed by more arrows. They find themselves surrounded by Dryads. Geralt realizes that surrendering is the only option if they are to have any chance of surviving this encounter. He explains the true purpose of his unexpected arrival in Brokilon and successfully convinces them that he still needs to speak with Aethna. They agree to accompany him for the remainder of the journey and assign one of their members, Brienne, as his guide. Without delay, he is sent on his way, forbidden from speaking to Fraxinete again or being informed of the man's fate. Geralt assures Calanthe that if Ciri survives, Pavetta's legacy lives on. Reluctantly, Calanthe agrees. However, Geralt soon realizes that the girl presented to him is not Ciri. Calanthe attempts to deceive him, but he sees the real Ciri outside. Moving forward, this episode shares some significant connections with the first episode of The Witcher. Calanthe confronts Geralt and shows no remorse for the deception. She holds Geralt responsible for Pavetta's demise. She argues that if he had not lifted Urchin's curse, she may have never married and could still be alive. King Aist, who has just come back from Skellige, reprimands Calanthe for disregarding the law of surprise. Geralt promises to come back if Ciri is ever in peril. In the short story, Geralt and Brienne embark on their journey through the forest towards Duin Canel. As they travel, they encounter a massive centipede threatening what appeared to be a halfling. Without hesitation, the Witcher springs into action to confront the beast. Together with Brienne, they manage to defeat the monster, only to discover that the supposed halfling is actually a young human girl, Princess Cirilla of Cintra, who is no more than 10 years old. Realizing they couldn't abandon the princess, Geralt and the Dryad decide to bring her along on their journey. It is during this part of their travels that Geralt and Ciri begin to form a bond. Ciri has been sent by her grandmother, Calanthe, to meet a potential suitor, Prince Kistrin, the son of King Ervil of Verden. However, Ciri has her own plans and has run away. Freixenet and his group have been searching for her to bring her back when they were attacked by the Dryads. Finally, the trio reaches the heart of Brokilon, Duin Canel, where they also discover Freixenet. Despite still being held captive, the Dryads are tending to his wounds and he appears to be recovering significantly. At last, the two men seize the opportunity to converse, and Freixenet enlightens Geralt on the remaining details of Ciri's ongoing adventure. Throughout their journey, it has become increasingly evident that, given the nature of Brokilon, Ciri will likely never be allowed to depart. Consequently, in addition to his initial purpose, Geralt must now engage in a discussion with Aethna regarding Ciri's destiny. The Queen of the Dryads is resolute and proud, harboring little sympathy for the humans who have confined her people to a small portion of the forest. In the end, Aethna grants Ciri the freedom to determine her own destiny, and Ciri chooses to join the Witcher path. Additionally, the Queen decides to spare Freixenet due to his association with Geralt and his lack of malicious intent towards the Dryads when he trespassed into their forest. It is important to note that Dryads still require male companionship in order to reproduce and create new Dryads. Hence, it appears that the large man will serve as a potential mate. As the Witcher and his newfound companion continue their journey towards Brugge, they find themselves surrounded by a seemingly hostile group of Verden soldiers. One of the group members claims that they have stumbled upon the aftermath of a Dryad ambush on a merchant caravan. However, Geralt quickly discerns that the evidence present contradicts the soldiers' assertions, leading to a confrontation. While Ciri manages to conceal herself in a tree, the Witcher finds himself greatly outnumbered. Fortunately, just in the nick of time, Mousesack and a group of Dryads arrive to rescue him. The trio proceeds on their journey together, with Geralt and Mousesack exchanging updates. Subsequently, the Witcher entrusts Ciri to the care of her uncle, Mousesack, and proceeds on his path, much to the dismay of the young girl. Queen Calanthe, the Lioness of Cintra, is a fearless leader who takes charge on the battlefield and ensures the safety of her people. When faced with the threat of Nilfgaard, she acts swiftly to protect her kingdom and secure the escape of her granddaughter, Ciri. However, the portrayal of Calanthe in the show differs slightly from the character in the books, as she orders a ruthless purge of individuals with elvish heritage in her realm, a stark contrast to her elvish lineage in the original story. In Nazaire, a group of Nilfgaardian soldiers diligently oversee an ongoing excavation near a colossal, obsidian-like rock formation known as a Magnolith. These peculiar structures have been sporadically scattered across the landscape throughout the season. These structures are adorned with indecipherable inscriptions. Amidst the laborious miners, a soldier sternly commands them to promptly report any discoveries they make. Meanwhile, Yennefer gracefully arrives on the scene and reunites with Istred, her former companion and lover from Aretuza. He is in search of an object tied to a prophecy, with Nilfgaard providing the funding for his quest. He praises Nilfgaard to Yennefer, emphasizing how the Empire takes care of its people. Yennefer proposes they escape together, but he is too committed to his cause. Istred's role in The Witcher differs significantly from his portrayal in the books. While he only makes a brief appearance in the books during a period when Yennefer is torn between him and Geralt, the show expands on his character. In the show, Istred plays a crucial role in addressing the issue of monoliths that allow monsters to enter their world, a plotline exclusive to the show. The only commonality between the book and show versions of Istred is his relationship with Yennefer as her lover, and his occupation as a sorcerer with a keen interest in archaeology. In Vilgefortz, a new character arrives who warns Yennefer about Nilfgaard's recruitment of mages for the war and advises her to accompany him to Aretuza. The Brotherhood of Sorcerers views Yennefer as a threat due to her unpredictable nature, which is exactly what Vilgefortz and her former mentor, Tissaia, require. Vilgefortz mentions that Tissaia regards Yennefer as her most promising student, leading Yennefer to agree to go with him. Tissaia de Vries, portrayed by Marianne Buring, plays a significantly larger role in The Witcher compared to her portrayal in the books. While she only makes occasional appearances in the novels, Tissaia becomes one of the main characters in the show. Additionally, her relationship with Vilgefortz, which is absent in the books, is explored in The Witcher. Interestingly, Tissaia is one of the few individuals in the novels who notices Vilgefortz's suspicious activities. Furthermore, the Tissaia depicted in the books appears to be colder and less empathetic compared to her portrayal in The Witcher. Yennefer strolls along the stone corridors of Aretuza, reminiscing about her past experiences, the dark moment when she contemplated ending her own life, the initial teaching she received from Tissaia. As she locates her former chamber, she startles a group of fresh-faced students, among them a young girl named Fola, bearing a burn mark on her face. Yennefer imparts her knowledge of herb-mixing magic to the girls, an act that Tissaia strictly prohibits. To her surprise, she discovers that some of these new students gained entry into Aretuza through financial means. The revelation that some of these girls never experienced a conduit moment leaves her astounded, considering her own pivotal moment of conjuring a portal when she was being bullied in episode 2. Yennefer escorts the girls to the windmill, a cavernous chamber with a luminous pool of water that we previously witnessed in episode 2. It is the same location where she dispatched those eels, which, as it turns out, were her fellow students who failed to progress and graduate from their magical studies. It is implied that these unfortunate individuals were sacrificed to maintain the magical energy of Aretuza, ensuring that there is enough controlled chaos to sustain the school's operations. The concept of magical students transforming into eels is not found in the original novels or video games that serve as the basis for The Witcher. Showrunner Lauren Schmidt-Hirsch acknowledged in an interview with TV Guide that this specific plot element was introduced to establish a significant distinction between Aretuza and Hogwarts. Hirsch clarified that they aimed to avoid portraying Aretuza as a mere magical location where individuals effortlessly acquire powers and fulfill their desires. Yennefer cautions the girls about the consequences of becoming mages, emphasizing that it will render them unable to bear children. She still harbors resentment over her own loss of fertility, but the students appear indifferent to her concerns. One of them retorts, "Just because you failed doesn't mean we will." This particular student's father allegedly secured her admission to Aretuza by offering a substantial number of horses. Tissaia makes an appearance, prompting Yennefer to confront her about admitting non-magical students into the school. Tissaia justifies this decision by stating, "Sometimes compromises must be made for survival." It appears that the mages have shifted their focus towards self-preservation. Later, Yennefer unexpectedly encounters Triss, whom we last encountered in episode 3. Triss informs her that Nilfgaard has seized control of Marnadal, likely referring to the strategically significant Marnadal Stairs, indicating their imminent invasion of Sintra. The Marnadal Stairs is the designated pass located in the Amel Mountains, linking Nazaire in the southern region to the Marnadal Valley and Sintra in the northern region. Triss Merigold, a beloved character in The Witcher 3, has made appearances in all 3 Witcher games and the Netflix show. However, her portrayal in these different mediums varies significantly. The sorceress with chestnut hair is the initial character Geralt encounters in the first Witcher game, taking care of the Witcher who has lost his memory. Their relationship develops over the course of the first 2 games, becoming inseparable by Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings. However, Geralt and Triss find themselves in a complicated love triangle with the arrival of Yennefer of Vengerberg in Witcher 3, where both Triss and Yen can be romanced. The games are based on Andrzej Sapkowski's 8-book series. Triss Merigold, unlike other characters, does not make an appearance in the initial books. In fact, her introduction is delayed until Blood of Elves. the leaders of Aretuza gather to discuss their approach to the Nilfgaard situation. Stregobor, along with some of the mages, argue that Sintra betrayed the Brotherhood and does not deserve any assistance. On the other hand, Tisea and Vilgefortz lead another faction that holds a different opinion. After a vote, the majority decides against intervening, leaving Sintra to face its fate alone. This decision ultimately leads to the destruction of Sintra. Vilgefortz firmly believes that if Nilfgaard emerges victorious, it will spell the end for Aretuza. He, along with Tisea and others, pledge to fight against them. Vilgefortz of Roggeveen holds a significant role in Sapkowski's novels, appearing as a distinctly unique character in The Witcher series. Vilgefortz, as depicted in the books, is a sorcerer of immense power, possessing supernatural agility and physical prowess. In the television series, his storyline primarily revolves around maneuvering through the intricacies of Brotherhood politics and resisting the invasion by Nilfgaard. This diverges from the books, where he takes charge of orchestrating the war, openly aligning himself with Nilfgaard, but secretly pursuing his own aspirations involving Ciri. We are then presented with a new perspective of the invasion of Sintra, albeit with an excessive number of flashbacks. We are presented with a slightly altered perspective, including that of Geralt, who happens to be in Sintra when the chaos ensues. We witness Calanthe's demise as she succumbs to her battlefield injuries. She instructs Ciri to escape with Mousesack, emphasizes Geralt's significance in her destiny, and tragically takes her own life by leaping out of a window. Essentially, it is a recapitulation of the events we already witnessed in Episode 1. An intriguing new development arises when Geralt faces a Nilfgaardian soldier. He demands information on Ciri's whereabouts, threatening to kill him. The brave soldier begins reciting an unusual religious belief. "We shall be reborn," he declares. "This is our destiny." In a previous scene, Fringilla, Nilfgaard's mage, discussed the Empire's adoption of the White Flame, a topic also mentioned by Cahir in Episode 6. This suggests that the soldier's speech is connected to that. The Nilfgaardians seem to be involved in something related to this White Flame, believing that Ciri plays a role in it. Cahir is convinced that the White Flame is working to unite them. Mimi Ndweni portrays Fringilla Vigo, a character in The Witcher who possesses a distinct narrative. Fringilla serves as a sorceress, affiliated with Nilfgaard in both versions, yet her significance and presence in the novels are comparatively limited. Ciri finds herself once again alone in the countryside, this time in a field instead of a forest. A group of young men who she recognizes as the commoners she used to play knucklebones with in Sintra approach her. Initially happy to see them, she soon realizes they have changed. They tell her she no longer holds authority, her former friend declares before they launch an attack. This causes Ciri to kneel and begin chanting a mysterious ritual in an unearthly voice. "Indeed, I tell you, the age of the sword and the axe is approaching, the age of the wolf's blizzard. The time of the white chill and the white light is near, the time of madness and the time of contempt." The mention of the sword and axe line may sound familiar as Cahir uttered it in the previous episode. Ciri's powers in the Netflix adaptation are evident right from the start, as both she and her mother, Pavetta, unleash chaos with their magical abilities. In one of the early episodes, Ciri's anger even causes a room to tremble. However, in the books, Ciri's powers gradually unfold over time. It is only in the second novel of the series that the true extent and versatility of her magic are revealed. Much More serves as the concluding episode of the first season of Netflix's The Witcher series. This episode draws inspiration from the short story titled Something More, which serves as the final tale in Sword of Destiny. It unfolds following the downfall of Sintra, with Geralt journeying towards Sintra in search of Ciri. The conclusion of the first season of The Witcher sees a shift away from the Monster of the Week format towards a focus on the larger plot involving Ciri and the Nilfgaardian Empire. Geralt finds himself back in Sintra, where he had recently dispatched a Nilfgaardian soldier who was reciting prophecies. As he stands in Ciri's room, he examines her possessions, a storybook, a dress, and a set of knucklebones. In this moment, we are reminded of his vow to Calanthe from the 7th episode. "I will take her, protect her, and bring her back unharmed. I promise you that." Afterwards, beyond the city walls, Geralt encounters a man whom he initially mistakes for a grave robber. This man is actually a merchant named Jurga, who is ensuring that the deceased receive a proper burial rather than plundering their graves. Geralt mentions his intention to return to Kaer Morhen, an ancient fortress nestled in the mountains of Kedwen, where he underwent his Witcher training many years ago. Suddenly, a disturbance in the ground catches his attention. Undead creatures with luminous eyes emerge from the soil and launch an attack on Geralt. Despite losing his sword, he manages to incapacitate one of the creatures by using its own tongue as an improvised weapon. Geralt emerges victorious against the creatures, albeit narrowly, but he notices a severe infected wound on his leg. "Not quite the happy ending I had in mind," he mutters as he collapses to the ground. The short story commences with a merchant named Jurga standing alone on a decaying bridge, endeavoring to repair the wheel of his cart, which has gotten stuck in the decaying planks of the bridge. Beneath the bridge lies a dry riverbed covered in nettles and scattered with human remains, and to make matters worse, he can discern the sounds of a horse drawing near. Swiftly, he conceals himself under the tarp, hoping to evade detection. The horseman halts and appears to sense that someone is concealed in the cart, calling out that he poses no threat. After contemplating for a moment, Jurga decides to take a risk and emerges. The horseman is revealed to be a Witcher, none other than Geralt of Rivia himself. The two individuals engage in a conversation about the merchant's current situation. Geralt observes that the wagon is too large for them to move on their own and inquires if Jurga was traveling by himself. The merchant confesses that he had two companions, Prophet and Vel, who fled, leaving him behind. Geralt proposes abandoning the cart and seeking safety before they become prey to whatever caused the other casualties, but Jurga refuses. The cart holds immense value for him, equivalent to a year's income at the very least, and he is determined not to abandon it. Despite Geralt's indifference, Jurga pleads for his assistance, offering to fulfill any request he may have. The words that hold a mysterious power, the invocation of the law of surprise, are spoken. Once everything is settled, Geralt advises Jurga to return to his cart and remain there silently. He then prepares himself for the impending battle, which indeed arrives. Although Geralt emerges victorious, he sustains severe injuries and collapses after the encounter. Ciri is once again discovered in solitude amidst the rural expanse. The individuals who assaulted her in the preceding episode, her former companions, have met their demise, distorted, shattered, and drenched in blood. One of them is gruesomely impaled upon a tree. It appears that the princess has unleashed yet another surge of mystical energy. The benevolent woman whose horse Ciri had appropriated in the previous episode discovers her and ensures her safety by carrying her away. The rebel mages from Aretuza, such as Yennefer, Vilgefortz, Tissaia, and Triss, are sailing in a rowboat across misty waters towards an ancient elven stronghold in Sodden, a location of significant tactical value. Nilfgaard is compelled to pass through the stronghold in order to advance its campaign across the continent. Tissaia informs Yennefer that Temeria and Kedwen will be lending their support in the upcoming battle, emphasizing the need to reinforce the stronghold until the Allied forces arrive within the next 48 hours. Vilgefortz inquires of Yennefer the reason for her arrival. She chooses not to disclose it. Then the keep is shown, a dilapidated fortress situated precariously on the precipice of a deep, rugged gorge. This stronghold safeguards the narrowest sections of the Yaruga River, serving as the sole barrier between Nilfgaard and the Northern Realms. Within the castle, the mages encounter weary refugees, forcibly displaced from their homes by the relentless advance of Nilfgaard. As the soldiers of the Empire march forth, the mages and refugees make preparations for the impending battle, aligning their bows, crafting arrows, and filling small glass containers with explosive, magic-infused blue stones. On the eve of the battle, Yennefer roams the battlements while the rest revel and indulge in merriment below. Even Tissaia, who is usually composed and unamused, can be seen laughing and smiling. Yennefer encounters a displaced woman crafting arrows, who recounts the atrocities inflicted upon her by the Nilfgaardians, emphasizing their villainous nature. Later, Tissaia and Yennefer engage in a heartfelt conversation. Yennefer expresses her readiness to embrace death, as she believes she has no lasting impact or family to leave behind. However, Tissaia disagree, asserting that Yennefer still possesses an abundance of untapped potential. The Nilfgaardians are encamped in close proximity to the fortress. A high-ranking military officer informs Cahir that a formidable force of 50,000 soldiers is en route from the recently devastated city of Sintra. Additionally, scouts have reported the presence of rebel mages fortifying the stronghold. Cahir, accompanied by Fringilla, a mage affiliated with Nilfgaard, who, incidentally, was once a fellow student of Yennefer's at Aretuza, commands a group of subordinate mages to conjure immense fiery projectiles, sacrificing their lives in the process. These fiery orbs are then launched towards the keep by a catapult operated by Nilfgaardian forces. Just as one of these projectiles is about to make impact, Yennefer awakens and employs her magical abilities to divert it. Fringilla is observed carrying a small black box and passing it to another sorcerer. She instructs them to draw the mages out. The following morning, it is revealed that 22 rebel mages have fled the keep due to their fear of the fireballs. Additionally, a dense fog, conjured by a Nilfgaardian mage, slowly advances towards the castle through the forest. Tissaia instructs Yennefer to ascend a nearby tower and oversee the impending battle, but advises her to conserve her chaos, reminiscent of a previous instruction given during her time as a trainee in Aretuza. It appears that the battle is on the verge of commencing. Meanwhile, in a nearby forest, Geralt, on the brink of death, finds himself in a cart driven by the merchant Yurga. His complexion is unusually pale and he experiences vivid recollections of his past. In one memory, he envisions himself as a young boy wearing a bucket on his head and wielding a wooden sword, engaged in a battle against an imaginary monster. "We must live and let live," his mother's voice echoes, though her face remains obscured. This phrase represents their guiding principle. Suddenly, Geralt's hallucination takes the form of a miniature golden dragon reminiscent of Borsch from episode 6, rather than a genuine childhood memory. In the short story, Yurga's servants return and assist the merchant in loading the Witcher onto the cart. Yurga, as it turns out, is a kind-hearted individual and takes it upon himself to ensure that the Witcher receives proper medical attention. The remainder of the story unfolds as Geralt drifts in and out of consciousness during the journey back to Yurga's residence in Sodden. He then dreams about Yennefer and their final encounter at the Beltane celebration. In subsequent scenes, additional flashbacks of Geralt's early years are revealed. His mother, whose face remains hidden, conjures an apple for him using magic, indicating her status as a sorceress. Furthermore, he mentions the name Vesemir, a significant figure expected to make an appearance in the second season. Geralt eventually regains his composure, consumes a potion, and applies some of it to his wound to prevent infection. Throughout the season, Geralt's origins have remained shrouded in mystery. In the short story, Geralt regains consciousness momentarily for Yurga to elucidate that they have now left Temeria and entered Sodden. The Witcher requests the merchant to pass him one of his elixirs, which he consumes before slipping back into a state of unconsciousness. He experiences a dream of his initial return to Sintra to claim Ciri. In the past, Geralt is unaware of the child's gender and assumes it to be a boy. He inquires with Mousesack, the druid, about which of the group of playing children is the one, but the druid informs him that Calanthe has forbidden him from disclosing this information to the Witcher. Calanthe is determined not to relinquish Ciri to the Witchers and is deliberately creating obstacles. The druid also divulges that Calanthe had hired him after the child's birth to assassinate the Witcher. However, at the 11th hour, she called off the plan without providing any explanation, although Mousesack admits that he would have carried out her command, or at least made an attempt to do so. Returning to the keep, there is an extensive battle sequence. Triss incapacitates a group of Nilfgaardian soldiers by summoning poisonous mushrooms. Sabrina hurls explosive bottles into the woods, which archers then shoot at, resulting in a fiery mortar strike. Coral decimates an entire squad of soldiers with a telekinetic blast, and Vilgefortz engages in a magical sword fight with Cahir. The mages are all showcasing their abilities. However, despite their valiant efforts, the Nilfgaardian assault proves to be overpowering, with the enemy forces closing in on the keep, until Fringilla enters the battle. Although commonly referred to as the Battle of Sodden Hill, It is important to note that historically, it was actually the Second Battle of Sodden Hill. The initial conflict, known as the First Battle of Sodden Hill, occurred at the onset of the First Northern War. This first battle resulted in a defeat for the northern kingdoms against Nilfgaard, ultimately paving the way for Nilfgaard's invasion and subsequent conquest of Sintra. Geralt awakens to find himself in the care of Vjuzhanina, a druid who also happens to be his mother. She informs him that his wounds were healed due to his pulse being 4 times slower than that of an average man, a direct consequence of his Witcher mutations. However, as Geralt recognizes Vjuzhanina's true identity, anger consumes him. He demands to know if she was aware when she abandoned him as a child that only 3 out of every 10 boys survive the grueling Witcher trials. In response, Vjuzhanina urges him to cease his inquiries, as the answers will only bring them both pain. She advises him to move forward and rediscover what he has lost, to find Ciri. In the short story, Geralt and Calanthe engage in a lengthy conversation regarding the law of surprise and the possibility of her giving up the child. Ultimately, the Witcher expresses his disbelief in destiny, emphasizing the need for something more. He clarifies to the Queen that he has no plans of taking Pavetta and Duni's son, unaware of their daughter's existence. The discussion also delves into witches, their trials, and Geralt's own transformation into one. It is revealed that Mousek's claims about Geralt being a surprise child are mere tales, as Geralt was actually abandoned to the witches by his sorceress mother. Throughout his life, Geralt had often pondered whether he would ever come face to face with the woman who had abandoned him to the witches. He had spent countless moments contemplating what he would say to her, what questions he would ask, if they were ever to meet. He had anticipated that such a meeting would bring him a certain twisted satisfaction. However, now that the encounter has taken place, Geralt finds himself too exhausted and feeble to confront her. He decides to postpone his inquiry until the following day, when the daylight will illuminate their conversation. Nevertheless, Vjuzhanina insists that Geralt should rest, assuring him that he will no longer desire to pursue his original intentions once he is fully awake. As she bids him farewell, Geralt attempts to resist her comforting presence and prevent her from vanishing once again, but his efforts prove futile. Geralt and Jurga then engage in a dialogue regarding the consequences of the Second Battle of Sodden, Vjuzhanina's act of self-sacrifice during Geralt's unconsciousness, and the sentiments of the locals towards mages influenced by the battle and its aftermath. As Jurga mentions the fallen mages one by one, Geralt's demeanor becomes unsettled, prompting him to interrupt his companion. Sometime later, Geralt ascends the Sodden Hill towards an obelisk, where he reads the names engraved on it. As he reads from top to bottom, reminiscing about the individuals, 3 names catch his attention before he is interrupted by a rustle. A cold, blonde-haired lady passes by, exuding an aura of chilliness. She kneels in front of the obelisk, concealing the last name of a mage. They engage in conversation, and Geralt realizes that she has been following him all along. Despite his initial fear of her, he now feels at peace. The lady explains her duty to him. Geralt admits that she has taken everything from him, but she corrects him, stating that she only offers hands to hold and companionship to those who are alone in the mist, which is how everything fades away around them. Jurga rouses Geralt from his slumber, questioning why the Witcher ventured upstairs when Jurga could have provided him with all the necessary information. To test Jurga's recollection, Geralt inquires about the mage's surname, only to discover that it is not the one he had presumed. The scene concludes with Geralt casting a glance at the names inscribed on the menhir, responding to Jurga's query about his familiarity with the last mage. The journey progresses, and although the Witcher's condition has improved significantly, he is still not completely recovered. Geralt continues to rest for most of the journey. Upon reaching Sodden, Jurga explains that it is highly improbable for the Witcher to receive the reward he requested. Since Jurga and his wife are no longer able to have children, the possibility of a new family member is slim. However, they have 2 capable sons who could potentially become witches. Despite Geralt's belief that they are now even due to the medical care and transportation provided by Jurga, the merchant remains adamant about offering a reward. As the river Yaruga comes into sight, Geralt finds himself slipping into a final dream, envisioning the same crossing. Within this dream, the Witcher witnesses a chaotic scene unfolding on the riverbanks. The crossing becomes a hub of activity as retreating soldiers, amidst the Nilfgaardian assault, obstruct the path of fleeing peasants attempting to cross the river. The soldiers are determined to secure their own passage and hinder the Nilfgaardians from pursuing them. Instructing the peasants to construct a raft using their axes, they assert that the ferry belongs to the army. Returning to the battleground, Yennefer encounters a greatly debilitated Tissaia. She informs her former pupil that it is now her responsibility to rescue these individuals and safeguard the continent. Disregard the container, she advises. Allow your chaos to erupt. Yennefer heeds her words and releases an immense surge of fiery sorcery. The flames engulf the forest, annihilating the Nilfgaardian army. Cahir observes from a distance, while King Foltest arrives with the Temerian army trailing behind him. The situation has taken a dramatic turn, it appears. Yennefer participated in the Battle of Sodden Hill as depicted in the books, but there is a major difference. She engaged in combat and unfortunately lost her sight due to an attack by Fringilla. Although she later recovered her vision, this experience added to her already extensive list of emotional wounds, which continued to affect her throughout her lifetime. With more than 100,000 soldiers from Nilfgaard and the Northern Kingdoms involved, the battle was a significant event in the histories of both Nilfgaard and the Cintran Kingdom. The destiny of several beloved mages remained uncertain as the Netflix finale concluded. However, the toll of the battle was undeniably heavy, with over 30,000 warriors and sorcerers either injured or killed. This accounted for a significant 30% of all individuals involved in the conflict. The triumph of the Northern Kingdoms came at a tremendous price. Among the casualties, 14 sorcerers perished, resulting in a significant loss for the magical and ruling elite. In the books, the Battle of Sodden Hill is described in retrospect, unlike in the first season of The Witcher, where fans are treated to a detailed portrayal of the battle. Similar to Geralt, readers are not privy to witnessing the fight firsthand, but rather learn about it after it has concluded. Given that the novels primarily follow Geralt's perspective and he was not present at the battle, this narrative approach becomes the sole means of obtaining information about the event. Ciri is currently staying with the woman she met earlier, resting in her home. Despite the sounds of battle in the distance, the woman assures Ciri that the Nilfgaardians are unlikely to come to their location. The following day, Ciri decides to venture into the nearby forest, unable to resist the allure of the woods. Meanwhile, a cart arrives at the house carrying Geralt and Jurga, who is revealed to be the woman's husband. Unfortunately, it seems like bad timing as Ciri is nowhere to be found. However, the woman informs Jurga that Ciri has gone into the forest. Suddenly, Geralt hears Renfri's voice from a past encounter, reminding him of the prophecy. The girl in the woods will be with you always. She is your destiny. Geralt enters the depths of the forest and, after a long search, finally discovers Ciri. Their reunion is filled with an overwhelming sense of emotion. Those bound by fate will always find one another. As the season draws to a close, Ciri and the Witcher finally unite, while the Nilfgaardians witness the true extent of Yennefer's power. In the short story, amidst the commotion, Geralt notices Dandelion, who seems to have been left behind with a cart full of chickens and geese in cages. Geralt beckons the bard over, helps him onto his horse, and the two exchange updates. Unfortunately, the news is grim. Cintra, the witch's intended destination, has fallen to the enemy forces and been looted. Even more tragic, it seems that the entire royal family has either been slaughtered or taken their own lives. Calanthe and possibly Ciri are no more. With Cintra no longer a viable destination, Geralt decides to accompany Dandelion in search of a new path. Upon nearing the merchant's residence, his wife, Zlotolika, rushes out eagerly to greet him, relieved that he has returned unharmed. However, she harbors a concern. During his absence, she had taken in an additional child, a young girl who had tragically lost her parents. To her surprise, she now worries that Jurga will be displeased with the added responsibility of providing for another mouth. It doesn't take long for the children to return, and amidst them stands a particular girl with ash blonde hair and captivating green eyes named Ciri. Geralt and Ciri rush towards each other, embracing tightly, their bond resembling that of a father and daughter. Ciri then exclaims, "It's just like they predicted, Geralt. like they predicted, "I'm your destiny. Say it." Geralt then answers, "You're more than that, Ciri. Much more." Anyway, that's it for Netflix's The Witcher Season 1. And when you get the chance, check out our Game of Thrones inspired Choose Your Own Adventure game here on YouTube by clicking the video link on the screen right now.